अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
हाँ साहब शाहरुख, क्या हाल है आपका?
बस ठीक-ठाक, आप बताएँ कैसे हैं?
मैं
हो गया
ठीक-ठाक।
मिनट आई नहीं तक।
आपको मेरी 1 सेकंड।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
हाँ सर, शाहरुख, क्या हाल है आपका?
बस ठीक-ठाक, आप बताएँ?
ओह! ये मुझे
मैं यहाँ
दोबारा आ रही है आवाज़।
हाँ, नहीं वो बस मैं थोड़ा-सा सेट कर रहा हूँ। यहाँ पे टेम्परेरी सा सेटअप है ना, तो इसलिए वो थोड़ा-सा ज़्यादा मसला हो रहा है।
अच्छा, अच्छा, अच्छा। अच्छा हाँ, मेरा कैमरा भी इज़ फाइन नाउ, ठीक है।
हाँ, कैमरा वापस सही आ रहा है। जी, बस 1 मिनट दें, ये जो है यहाँ पे सेट कर लें। चलिए, ख़्याल से अब सही हो गया है। सही हो गया, ठीक है। तो फ्रेंड क्या हाल-चाल है आपका? वैसे तो
बस
हम
अल्लाह का शुक्र है।
आजकल तो हर रोज़ ही पूछते हैं एक-दूसरे से तो लेकिन चलें
मैं असल
देखा
में
जाए तो
मैं प्रिटेंड नहीं कर
ये
सकता कि
फीचर्स
आपको
हैं।
मैं जानता नहीं हूँ।
बिल्कुल, ये भी मसला होता है हमारे साथ।
नहीं, मैं तो
हुँ,
इट्स जस्ट बीन वेरी बिज़ी टुडे। आज क्योंकि फैमिली भी
हाँ,
जा रही है, ट्रैवल कर रही है, उसके चक्कर में भाग-दौड़। ओह!
हाँ,
अच्छा बाय द वे,
यूएस जो जाने बिल्कुल।
आप आ रहे हो ना जब, ये आपके लिए तैयार है शाहरुख।
हुँ, हुँ।
आपको
ओह!
नज़र आ
अच्छा,
रहे हैं?
चलिए ठीक ठीक है, बिल्कुल सही। इस पे मैं आपको ना आपके घर आके आपको कॉफ़ी बना के दूँगा अपनी मशीन से।
अ, ओए होए 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 होए!
हाँ,
कौन-सी
मैंने नई
वाली?
नई
ये तो
चीज़
पता नहीं
खरीदी।
है।
नहीं, ये तो दिखाना
कौन-सी?
पड़ेगा ना, बताने वाली बातें नहीं आती।
मुझे लग
दिखाने
रहा है
वाली बातें
नेस्प्रेसो
आती।
है। मुझे लग रहा है नेस्प्रेसो है।
नहीं, 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 पॉट्स तो नहीं सही होते। फ्रेशली
अच्छा,
ग्राउंड कॉफ़ी
अच्छा।
से
ओहो!
करेंगे।
आप यार अब आप भी
फ्रेश कॉफ़ी।
काफ़ी एलीटिस्ट हो गए हो नादिर की तरह।
असल में शुरू से ये उसके बाद से ही ये क्या नाम है, सुमित राय के बाद से ही कॉफ़ी शुरू तो की थी एक्सप्लोर करना। उसी ने
हुँ।
आदत डाली है इसकी। लेकिन ज़ाहिर है फिर आस्ता-आस्ता बंदा
दिन के
डेवलप
कितने
करते
कप हैं
रहता है।
आपके?
नहीं, मैं बहुत कम पीता हूँ, मुश्किल से 1 कप। मतलब हर रोज़ भी नहीं पीता।
रियली?
हाँ, हाँ।
रियली?
असल में मुझे इंटरेस्ट जो है ना वो कह लें कॉफ़ी की टेक्नोलॉजी का है, ना कि मतलब कॉफ़ी इटसेल्फ का।
अच्छा।
कॉफ़ी जो है उसकी जो साइंस है ना वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है क्योंकि इतना वो कह लें वोलेटाइल सा केमिकल है कि समझ नहीं आती कि अगर आप ज़रा-सा भी आगे-पीछे कुछ कर दें तो वो खराब हो जाता है।
रियली?
उसकी कह लें नखरे बहुत ज़्यादा
क्या
हैं
मतलब
कॉफ़ी के ना।
ज़रा-सा क्या मतलब? मतलब क्या मतलब कि इसकी वो
मसलन मसलन अगर आप
ग्राइंडिंग
उसको
इट या
ब्रू
मेकिंग इट?
हाँ, सारी चीज़ें अगर आप ग्राइंडिंग साइज़ चेंज करते हैं, ग्राइंडिंग कंसिस्टेंसी चेंज करते हैं, अगर
हुँ।
आप 96 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे ब्रू करेंगे तो डिफरेंट रिज़ल्ट आएगा, 94 पे करेंगे तो डिफरेंट आएगा, 2 डिग्री से फ़र्क पड़ जाता है।
अच्छा, 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 ओके।
हाँ, तो वो उनको
इंटरेस्टिंग,
एक्सप्लोर करने का काफ़ी मज़ा आता है।
इंटरेस्टिंग। अच्छा, मुझे नहीं पता कि इतना सर्जिकल है ये।
नहीं है, असल में मैं ये देख रहा था कि जब शुरू किया ना तो ये लग रहा था कि मतलब कॉफ़ी बनाना कोई मुश्किल तो नहीं होता, मतलब ज़रा-सा आप उसको बॉयल कर लें तो वो मोका पॉट में तो सही बन जाती है। तो
हुँ,
फिर ये पता चला कि एक्चुअली जिस तरह से आप ड्रग्स बनाते हैं, अब ड्रग्स भी अच्छे भी होते हैं, बुरे भी होते हैं, है तो वो ड्रग्स ही ना।
हुँ।
तो
हुँ, हुँ, हुँ।
कॉफ़ी के एक्सट्रैक्शन का भी एक्चुअली तो आप देखा जाए तो एक ड्रग एक्सट्रैक्ट कर रहे हैं एक सोर्स मटेरियल से, जो कैफ़ीन एक्सट्रैक्ट कर रहे हैं।
हाँ,
तो
ठीक है।
उसका जो प्रोसेस है और वो आपका भी केमिकली रे ये भी नहीं है कि आपने बस धो लिया या पका लिया। कुकिंग भी तो एक देखा जाए तो केमिकल रिएक्शन है। लेकिन इसमें आप प्रॉपर इक्विपमेंट के साथ केमिकल रिएक्शन करवा रहे हैं जिसमें प्रेशराइज़्ड वाटर और प्रेशराइज़्ड और हीटेड वाटर पास कर रहा है एक कह लें पाउडर फॉर्म ऑफ अ सब्सटेंस से। तो सारी
ठीक
चीज़ें
है।
मिल के फिर ये केमिकल रिएक्शंस उस तरह से बना रहे हैं।
और अगर टेम्परेचर वेरी कर रहा है, तो इश्यू क्या होगा?
तो
लेट्स से इट्स नॉट
जो
96, इट्स 93।
हाँ, तो जो कैफ़ीन का मॉलिक्यूल है ना, वो पेयर अप कर जाएगा डिफरेंट चीज़ों के साथ। आप म्यूट हो गए। तो म्यूट हो गए मेरे से भी।
हेलो।
कॉल आ गई थी आपको?
हाँ सॉरी, बीच में मेरी कॉल आ गई एंड इट वाज लाइक
ओह! अच्छा, अच्छा, अच्छा। स्विच आ गई शायद उस वक़्त।
सॉरी सॉरी। अच्छा,
हुँ,
आपको मेरी आवाज नहीं
चलो, चलो,
बोलते हुए?
चलो। नहीं, शायद आपका पहले म्यूट हो गया था। जब आपने बोला ना तो साथ ही म्यूट हो गया था।
अच्छा अच्छा, मैं बोलना तो साथ चाह रहा हूँ कि मुझे आप जरा 1 मिनट सिर्फ दो, मैं तो कॉल लेता हूँ। अच्छा, ओ सॉरी
ओह! अच्छा, अच्छा,
सॉरी
वो पता नहीं चला। कोई
सॉरी
बात नहीं,
सॉरी।
कोई बात
अच्छा, तो
तो
आज के
खैर
शाहरुख
वो
हमारा, हाँ
हाँ,
सॉरी गो
मेन
अहेड।
टॉपिक पे आ जाते हैं। नहीं, मैं कह था कि मेन टॉपिक पे आ जाते हैं फिर,
हाँ हाँ, ठीक है ठीक
वरना कॉफ़ी पे ही आधा घंटा लग जाएगा पूरा।
है। तो मैं इतना क्यूरियस हूँ कि मेरे पास कोई 20-30 सवाल है ऑलरेडी लाइंड अप, वो मैं आपसे आगे पूछूंगा।
हुँ, मेरे ख्याल से नेक्स्ट नेक्स्ट सेशन इस पे कर लेंगे
क्योंकि
कॉफ़ी
ये
पे।
आप मुझे एल्केमी की साइड पे लेके जा रहे हो, मैं आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड
हाँ,
ये असल कहानी क्या बन रही है इसमें।
ऑलमोस्ट ऑलमोस्ट एल्केमी का लेवल होता है उसमें, लेकिन वही बात है,
हम्म,
बाद में डिस्कस करते हैं।
ठीक है,
और डिटेल्स में जाते रहेंगे।
डन
तो
है।
खैर आज का जो हमारा मेन टॉपिक है ना, वो है मोरालिटी का। और बेसिकली
डन।
अभी तक जो है ना मोरालिटी का डिस्कशन वो आप कह लें कि 2 मतलब बाइपोलर ये है कि 2 चीज़ें, या मोरालिटी सब्जेक्टिव हो सकती है या ऑब्जेक्टिव हो सकती है।
हम्म
सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी का मतलब ये है कि मेरी मोरालिटी आपकी मोरालिटी से डिफरेंट हो सकती है। और ऑब्जेक्टिव का मतलब है कि
हाँ
मोरालिटी है एक, लेकिन मेरी परसेप्शन डिफरेंट हो सकती है। लेकिन ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी में मेरी मोरालिटी गलत हो सकती है, आपकी ठीक हो सकती है। सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी में सबकी मोरालिटी ठीक है, किसी की भी गलत नहीं है, क्योंकि वो
सब जो,
सब्जेक्टिव है।
हाँ या श्योर श्योर
हाँ,
श्योर।
अब एक डिस्कशन ये है कि अगर तो ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी होती है, तो उसका सोर्स
हम्म
क्या होगा? और अगर सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी होती है, तो कौन डिटरमाइन करेगा कि किसी एक सिचुएशन में कौन सही है, कौन गलत है? तो सब्जेक्टिव
डिटरमिन
वर्सेस
कौन करेगा,
ऑब्जेक्टिव।
ठीक है।
हाँ, सब्जेक्टिव वर्सेस ऑब्जेक्टिव। और अगर ऑब्जेक्टिव है तो सोर्स कौन-सी होगी, और अगर सब्जेक्टिव है तो एग्रीमेंट कहाँ पे होगा? इस पे आपका क्या ख़्याल है?
सब्जेक्ट ये आपने, क्योंकि ये आपने एक बहुत ही, ये काफी फिलोसॉफिकल कॉन्वर्सेशन भी हो सकती है इसके ऊपर।
हाँ,
लेकिन
लेकिन
जब
हम
आप,
कोशिश करते हैं ना कि हम एक्शन
कैन
बेस्ड
वी,
रखें ना, इस जिस तरह से हम पहले रखे
हाँ,
हैं कि फिर
अगर
करना
मैं
क्या है,
इसको
इस
अगर मैं
अप्रोच में।
इसको नैरो डाउन करता हूँ, आज जिसको आप मोरालिटी कह रहे हैं, ठीक है।
हुँ,
मोरालिटी की मतलब अगर मेरे किसी बच्चे को ये समझाना है तो मैं कहूंगा कि यार सही गलत, राइट रॉन्ग,
हाँ,
दैट्स द वे आई
बिल्कुल।
थिंक अबाउट इट, सिंपल एज दैट।
मोरालिटी बेसिक मोरालिटी यही है, बिल्कुल।
ठीक है, एनी टाइम द टॉपिक इज टू बिग फॉर मी, आई इमेजिन अ चाइल्ड जिसको मैंने एक्सप्लेन करना है, तो वो
हाँ,
उधर से
अच्छा
क्लैरिटी
ठीक है।
मिल
हाँ,
जाती है। यू नो इट कैन हेल्प
हुँ,
समटाइम्स।
हुँ,
तो अगर मैं कहता हूँ राइट रॉन्ग, उसमें जो सब्जेक्टिव राइट रॉन्ग्स हैं, मेरे हिसाब से जो मैंने देखा है वो, यस वो कल्चरल भी हो सकते हैं, वो एक यूनिवर्सल भी हो सकते हैं, बट अगेन इट इज विद कॉन्टेक्स्ट। जब आप किसी चीज के
हुँ,
पीछे कल्चर और कॉन्टेक्स्ट डाल देते हो, तो उसकी शक्ल बदल जाती है, उसकी उसकी राइटनेस या रॉन्गनेस बदल जाती
हुँ।
है।
अच्छा, ये जो है ना, ये आप बात कर रहे हैं कि सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी की। क्योंकि अगर लोकेशन, कल्चर, सिचुएशन से गुड और बैड चेंज हो जाए, तो इसका मतलब है सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी प्रिवेल
यस,
करनी चाहिए।
करेक्ट।
तो आपके ख्याल में
दैट
सब्जेक्टिव
इज,
मोर
but you know who, मतलब again it is extremely powerful and dangerous because
हुँ,
this means कि जो underlying control है उस चीज का, वो आपका आपका कल्चर और आपका रिलीजन और ये
सिचुएशन
सारी
अब
फोर्सेस
सिचुएशन
हैं,
पे चला गया। हाँ,
that will drive this, right?
हुँ, हुँ,
तो अगर, तो इसका मतलब है कि whoever understands that understand, you know, controls, who
हाँ,
understands x controls y, it's kind of like that।
हाँ, अच्छा
तो
इसको एग्ज़ाम्प्लिफ़ाई कर
हाँ,
लेते हैं,
ठीक
सुनने
है।
वालों को भी आसानी होगी। अच्छा, इस तरह से देखें कि समझें हमारे कल्चर में, पाकिस्तान में
हम्म,
अगर कोई छोटा बंदा किसी बड़े ऐज के बड़े बंदे के हाथ चूमता है, हम
हाँ,
उसको बहुत बुरा कहते हैं कि ये तो बहुत वो कह लें इंडिसेंट तो नहीं कह सकते, लेकिन मतलब थोड़ा-सा वर्शिप तक ले जाते हैं कि ये तो इतना ज़्यादा इसको
हम्म,
रिस्पेक्ट दे रहा है कि ये तो
यस
वो पीरी-मुरीदी में ख़ास तौर पे ये कॉमन है।
यस
अच्छा, लेकिन
यस।
सऊदी अरब में ये बहुत कॉमन है। सऊदी अरब में लोग अपने से जो बड़े होते हैं ना, उनका फ़ौरन आके हाथ चूमते हैं।
फैमिलीज में भी,
फैमिलीज़ में भी हाँ, अपने
हाँ,
पेरेंट्स का मतलब अक्सर फादर ये अक्सर
बस।
मेल्स करते हैं, बल्कि फीमेल्स भी नहीं करती, मेल्स
हम्म।
करते हैं सिर्फ़। कि वो हाथ चूमते हैं। तो अब ये बात आपके ख़्याल में फिर सही है या गलत है? क्योंकि या ये सही हो सकती है या ये गलत हो सकती है। ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता कि एक जगह सही हो एक जगह गलत हो।
अच्छा, अब अगेन मैं फिर अगर हम इसमें ये डाल दें कि इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द ऑब्जर्वर, तो अगर मैं लेट्स से आई कम फ्रॉम अ प्लेस
हम्म,
व्हिच हैज सम बैकग्राउंड इनके भी, आपको ये डीइफिकेशन नहीं होनी चाहिए, जिस तरह कुछ कुछ कल्चर्स में
हाँ
या कुछ
होता है।
ग्रुप्स के अंदर होता है कि यार आप लोगों को ना इंसान को इंसान समझो, उसको मतलब नाउजुबिल्ला
बिल्कुल
खुदा
हाँ।
मत बनाओ, राइट? ये एक है
और
एक चीज, एंड
और
देयर इज
देखा जाए तो
ऑलवेज अ
ये
स्लिपरी स्लोप।
अगले का ईगो भी बढ़ा रहे हैं ना, तो ईगो बढ़ाना तो
हाँ,
वैसे
ऑफ
ही
कोर्स,
एक और बैड आ गया साथ में।
ऑफ कोर्स, ऑफ कोर्स।
हाँ,
तो ये वाला अगर मैं उस बैकग्राउंड से आऊं, सो आई
हम्म,
अब जैसा मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि जब मैं अंडरग्रेड में था अपना यूएस के अंदर, सो आई केम फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान, ठीक है, मैं सऊदी अरेबिया भी रहा सब कुछ, लेकिन मतलब ज्यादातर मेरी जो अवेयरनेस थी वो पाकिस्तान से थी।
हम्म,
एंड नाउ आई एम इन दिस न्यू वर्ल्ड जिधर इतनी ज्यादा सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी है कि जिस चीज को हम कहते हैं ना हॉ हाय ये वो, इट वाज फुली एक्सेप्टेड, एंड द थिंग्स दैट
हम्म,
आई वाज कंसीडरिंग एज के जी साइन ऑफ रेवरेंस, जिस तरह फॉर इंस्टेंस मैं आपको छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ। मेरा जो पहली मेरी मैथ की क्लास थी उसके अंदर मेरा टीचर आया सुबह, और सुबह के
हम्म,
वक्त होती थी 8 बजे। सो वो
अच्छा।
टीचर आया क्लास में तो मैं खड़ा हो गया,
हाँ, जिस
ठीक
तरह
है
से
ना?
पाकिस्तान में होता है बिल्कुल।
जैसा पाकिस्तान में होता है कि आप कमरे आप क्लास में आते खड़े। तो मेरे साथ एक बंदा बैठा था, इज एन अमेरिकन, तो कॉकेशियन अमेरिकन, एंड ही
हम्म,
लुक्ड एट मी एंड ही स्माइल्ड। तो वो कहता है ऐसे, कहता है यू डोंट हैव टू स्टैंड लाइक, अच्छा। और तो टीचर ने एकदम मुड़ के देखा ना कि ये किसने बोला है?
ये
तो
क्या
फिर
हुआ?
एंड देन आई वाज लाइक ओए इसको भी डांट पड़ने वाली है, अब तो इसकी क्षमता आ गई है, यू नो। देन द टीचर
हाँ,
सेड हाँ या यू डोंट हैव टू स्टैंड। तो मैंने कहा ओए ये क्या हो गया? ये तो
ये तो उल्टा
मतलब
हो गया।
ये तो मैथ
रिवर्स
क्या है
ऊनो
ये
कार्ड।
टीचर। मैं कहा टीचर खुद अपनी इज्जत नहीं करा रहा है यार, ये क्या मसला है, यू नो, लाइक आई
हाँ,
वाज लुकिंग एट फ्रॉम दैट पर्सपेक्टिव। So
हम्म,
there is this element of subjectivity, और मुझे मुझे एक्चुअली बुरा लग रहा था। मुझे अभी भी याद है कि आई केम बैक आफ्टर, ये मेरा 95 की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, तकरीबन 30 साल पुरानी बात, कि आई
हम्म,
फेल्ट बैड। आई वाज लाइक नहीं यार, ये तुम्हें
हम्म,
मतलब उस्ताद
ये
की
तो
इज्जत
गलत
करनी
हो रहा
चाहिए,
है।
ये क्या कर रहे हो तुम?
हाँ,
अच्छा,
हम्म,
उसी क्लास में शाहरुख, क्योंकि सुबह की क्लास होती थी और हम लड़के लड़की ज्यादातर दे डिडंट टेक दिस क्लास, क्योंकि कहते हैं यार
हम्म,
सुबह किसने उठना है और ये सारा।
हाँ,
तो
बिल्कुल
लोगों के
मुश्किल
मूड
होता
भी
है।
थोड़े ऑफ होते थे, थोड़ा सा ना एज पे
हम्म,
होते थे ये स्टूडेंट्स होते। तो उनके अंदर क्लास में ड्यूरिंग द सेमेस्टर एक पॉइंट पे टीचर लेट आया, तो लड़के ने बैक
अच्छा,
बेंचेस को कुछ बोला कि यू नो आई आई पे फॉर यू टू शो अप ऑन टाइम। तो कोई उसने
हम्म,
कोई ना मतलब कोई क्रैंकी, और मुझे वो इतना बुरा लगा, मैंने कहा यार अपने उस्ताद से कौन इस तरह बात करता है? एंड देन
हाँ,
व्हेन आई टॉक विद माय अमेरिकन फ्रेंड्स, तो उन्होंने कहा लुक आई नो, कहते कहते यार उसको बोलने की शायद जरूरत नहीं थी इस तरह, थोड़े और तरीके से भी बात कर सकता था, मे बी थोड़ा
हम्म,
एग्रेसिव था, मे बी थोड़ा क्रैंकी था, बट रियलिटी है कि दीज
बात तो ठीक
पीपल
है।
सर्व अस,
हम्म,
दे आर सर्वेंट्स। तो
हम्म,
मैंने कहा यार सर्वेंट्स तो इस तरह तो नहीं बोलो यार, कहते नहीं नहीं नहीं, कहते दैट्स ट्रू, दे आर सर्विंग, यू आर थिंकिंग
हम्म,
सर्वेंट फ्रॉम अ डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव। सो वो एक और मोरालिटी का मेरा खाता खुल गया कि
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल।
आई द वर्ड सर्वेंट यूज्ड टू यू नो बी लाइक ओ माय गॉड ये सर्वेंट कह दिया, इट्स लाइक नो,
हम्म,
दे आर सर्वेंट्स। और वो दिमाग को प्रोसेस करने में शाहरुख काफी मुझे
टाइम लगा, हाँ।
टाइम लगा कि
हम्म,
यार ये डेफिनेशंस चेंज हो रही हैं, और ये नहीं कि वो बात गलत है, जैसे आप कह रहे हो ना कि हु डिसाइड्स, मतलब
हम्म,
इफ आई गेट इनफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट और डेफिनेशन ठीक हो, तो मैं उसकी बात से डिसएग्री नहीं कर सकता टेक्निकली।
अच्छा, लेकिन इसमें अब देखिए ये ना बहुत आप कह लें नॉन एसेंशियल क्वेश्चंस हैं जो हम अभी
ठीक है,
डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि रिस्पेक्ट कितनी देनी है।
ठीक
अगर
है,
हम एसेंशियल क्वेश्चंस में चले समझें,
ठीक है,
अब लीगल एज फॉर मैरिज है। अब कुछ
ठीक है।
कंट्रीज ऐसी हैं जिसमें वो 21 है, कुछ में 18 है।
यप, यप,
तो अब
यप।
कौन सी ठीक है? 21 ठीक है या 18 ठीक है? ये कौन डिसाइड करेगा? क्योंकि अगर हम ये कहते हैं कि सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी है, तो
या
आप कह रहे हैं कि अगर आप इत्तेफ़ाक से इन लैटिट्यूड्स और लॉन्गिट्यूड्स के अंदर पैदा हो गए, तो 21 इज़ द राइट एज। और अगर आप
एग्जैक्टली।
गलती से उधर चले गए तो आप जो है ना बचपन में अपने शादी हो जाएगी आपकी।
हाँ,
क्योंकि अगर 21 लीगल एज है, तो इसका मतलब 18 गलत है। 18 में जो
यस,
करेगा वो तो उसको आप टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग पीडोफाइल कह सकते हैं।
यस,
लेकिन
करेक्ट।
अगर आप 18 वाले कंट्री में हैं और आप कह रहे हैं कि यार ये पागल है जो अपना एक लीगल राइट को एक्सरसाइज़ ही नहीं करने दे रहा, मुझे नहीं एक्सरसाइज़ करने दे रहा, खुद नहीं एक्सरसाइज़ कर रहा। तो
100%।
अगर हम एसेंशियल क्वेश्चन्स में चले जाएँ, तो फिर कौन ठीक होगा इस सब्जेक्टिव
दैट्स
मोरालिटी
अ
की सिचुएशन में?
वेरी वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन शाहरुख। और मैं, अब ये भी आपने सवाल पूछा है ना, इस पे भी मेरी
हम्म,
यूएस के अंदर बहस हो चुकी थी
अच्छा
बिकॉज
ओ,
हाँ, इस पे हुआ था बिकॉज आई वाज शेयरिंग कि मेरी खुदाबख्श नानी की कब शादी हुई, मैंने उनसे ऐसी बात
हम्म
की। तो माय नानी गॉट मैरिड व्हेन शी वाज 13। उस जमाने में शादियां पहले होती
होता
थी।
था पाकिस्तान में तो
तो
कॉमन था।
कहता है कहता है 13 और 18। मैं कहा नो 13। कहते नो वे दैट्स नॉट पॉसिबल। मैं कहा नो इट
हम्म
इज पॉसिबल एंड शी हैड किड्स एंड शी हैड मिसकैरेजेस बट शी देयर वाज इट वाज जो भी था। सो
हम्म
देयर वाज दिस सेंस ऑफ शेम जो मेरे
हम्म
ऊपर डाली गई थी बेस्ड ऑन द पीपल आई वाज टॉकिंग टू, कि तुम ये
हम्म
किस प्रिमिटिव जगह से आए हो, लाइक तुम लोग ये
हम्म,
क्या सोचते हो, ये बच्चियों की शादी इतनी अर्ली
बिल्कुल
क्यों करा रहे हो,
हम्म
तो एंड आई थॉट अबाउट इट एंड आई सेड कि ये वाकई मतलब 13 साल, मतलब मैं उस वक्त 16 का था, 16 गोइंग ऑन 17।
हम्म
तो मैं कह रहा था
हम्म
हाँ ठीक है, लेकिन फिर जब कुछ कहते हैं लड़कियां मेच्योर अर्लियर देन मैन, लेकिन वो मेंटल है।
डिफरेंट एज होती है हाँ
हाँ, फिर फिजिकल है, लेकिन हु डिसाइड्स कि फिजिकल कितनी मेच्योरिटी है, हु डिसाइड्स कि मेंटल कितनी मेच्योरिटी है। देन किसी और से मैंने बात की तो उन्होंने कहा देखो बहुत सारे बच्चे हैं जो 8-9 साल की उम्र में दे दे हैव टू टेक ऑन अ लॉट ऑफ बर्डन ऑफ द फैमिली, तो वो बाय
हम्म
10, 12, 15 दे आर ऑलमोस्ट एज लाइक अ 30-30 ईयर ओल्ड पर्सन।
हम्म
तो सोच सोच की बात करें, फिजिकली नहीं बट
मेंटली
मेंटली।
हाँ मेंटली
तो
भी तो रेडी होना चाहिए।
वो ऐसे ऐसी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज उठाते हैं जो कि बड़े उठाते हैं।
हम्म
तो फिर देन व्हेन वी गॉट इनटू डिबेट तो किसी ने बोला कि नहीं बट दैट्स अब्यूज, जिसको तुम जस्टिफाई कर रहे हो वो अब्यूज है। तो मैंने कहा
हम्म
अच्छा, सो बट हु डिसाइड्स व्हाट्स अब्यूज, राइट? सो उन्होंने कहा कि भाई देयर आर
हम्म
ऑब्वियस अब्यूजेस। उसने लिस्ट कर दी 3-4 चीजें। मैं कहा ऑब्वियसली दिस इज अब्यूज, दिस इज अब्यूज। किसी को मारना, किसी को असॉल्ट करना, किसी को शायद ये करना, किसी को फलाना, ये तो मैं एग्री विद, ये तो मैं नोबडी नीड्स टू आई डोंट नीड टू आस्क समबडी। लेकिन
नहीं
जब
लेकिन
घर
इस
के
पर भी आते हैं
संभालना
इस पर भी आते हैं।
रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। सॉरी।
जरा इस बात पे भी आते हैं बाद में
हाँ,
फिर
तो मैंने कहा कि कुछ चीजें तो मेरे लिए ऑब्वियस हैं, लेकिन द थिंग्स दैट
हम्म
जो यू टॉकिंग अबाउट के घर में सुबह उठ के सफाई करना, ये करना, फलाना करना, घर को साफ रखना, ये चीजें करना, तो कहती नहीं वेल दैट्स बॉर्डर लाइन अब्यूज। मैं कहा अगेन इट डिपेंड्स। हम लोग आज ये इस वजह से कह रहे हैं क्योंकि हमारे बावजूद बचपन में ये करते आए सारा।
हम्म
देयर वाज नो
हम्म
अदर हेल्प, राइट? सो ये
जाहिर है
हर जगह होता है।
ऑप्शन नहीं था।
ये अमेरिका में भी होता है। ये जो जो मिड टाउन कह रहा हूँ, ये मिड वेस्ट में रहते हैं, या जो रूरल एरियाज में रहते हैं, जो आमिश हैं, जो फार्म्स पे रहते हैं,
वैसे करते हैं हाँ।
उनके बच्चे बचपन से दे आर मिल्किंग
हम्म
काउज, क्लीनिंग द पान, सारी चीजें कर रहे
सुसाइड
होते हैं।
लेबर नहीं कंसिडर करते, फैमिली सपोर्ट है
एग्जैक्टली
उसको तो समझते हैं।
एग्जैक्टली और
हाँ
वो सुबह 4 बजे भी उठते हैं सबके साथ,
हम्म
पूरा दिन गुजारते हैं एंड दे आर
हम्म
टफ एज नेल्स। वो कहते हैं ना,
ऐसे
वो
ही
दे
थे।
स्ट्रांग। तो कहती है हाँ लेकिन ये बारबैरिक है और अब जमाना बदल गया है। तो मैंने
ऐसे
कहा
लेकिन
फिर
बल्कि
हाँ
काफी फैमिली इसको एज अ डिसिप्लिन और वो स्ट्रीट स्मार्टनेस के लिए यूज करते हैं
या
कि जब तक
या
बच्चा ऐसे काम नहीं कर रहा तब तक तो वो बेचारा बिल्कुल ही मतलब जिस लैंग्वेज में वो बात करते हैं कि वो औरत बन के रह गया,
हाँ 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 हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
तो इस तरह
एब्सोल्युटली।
से
लेकिन
कंसिडर करते हैं।
लेकिन
आपको नहीं
शाहरुख
आ
ये
रही
वही
मीटिंग?
कल्चर है।
आ रही
क्या करनी मीटिंग
करियो।
हो रही है कोई?
आई थिंक फवाद इज
फवाद भी आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं?
चलिए कंटिन्यू करो, मैं फिर बताता हूँ, ठीक है कोई मसला
चलें ठीक
अच्छा अच्छा। तो ये वही कल्चर है जिसमें कहते हैं 18 में आपको घर से निकालना है। तो
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
अब
हाँ।
आप मुझे,
अब ये कैसे
मैं
मामले
18 का
ठीक
होता,
है, ये भी तो सोचना है।
मतलब 17 दिन और 300 364 डेज तक तो मैं घर में हूँ, और 365 पे मुझे उठा के अपने बाहर फेंकना है।
हाँ
ठीक है ठीक है। तो अब मैं, या अगर मैं रह रहा हूँ तो मैंने रेंट देना है, राइट? तो
मतलब बेसिकली
नाउ
वो
आई,
एक आउटसाइडर हो गए
हाँ
ना,
आउटसाइड।
मतलब ये है।
अब आपको, बट आई अंडरस्टैंड द नीड फॉर दैट टू। ठीक है।
हम्म
अब वो किस तरह इम्प्लीमेंट हो रहा है शाहरुख, वो फर्क चीज है। जिस तरह आई अंडरस्टैंड द नीड
हम्म
फॉर चिल्ड्रन वर्किंग एट होम्स सिंस चाइल्डहुड,
बिल्कुल
मैं
बिल्कुल और
उसके
उसमें
अगेंस्ट नहीं।
कोई हाँ मेरे ख्याल से अगर वो घर पे काम करें तो मसला नहीं है, शायद घर
कोई
से
मसला नहीं।
बाहर जाके काम करने में डिफरेंट सिचुएशन हो
हाँ,
जाती है।
वो कहते हैं लेकिन नहीं, मुझे उससे भी वो भी फिर कॉन्टेक्स्ट आ गया ना। अगर बच्चा, इफ यू आर लेट्स से, अगर
हम्म
आप ये ऑर्गेनिक मिल्क लेट्स से आप
हम्म
बेचते हो, आपका फार्म का काम है, वेल यू आर
हम्म
पार्ट ऑफ अ कमर्शियल ऑपरेशन। तो
हाँ कह
आप
सकते उसमें बाहर भी जा सकते
आप
हैं,
बेच
कुछ भी
रहे
कर
हो,
सकते
यू
हैं
आर
हाँ।
हेल्पिंग आउट द फैमिली, और ये करते हैं, और बच्चे
हम्म
बहुत सारे करते हैं।
हम्म हम्म
घर में कुकिंग में हेल्प करते हैं, इंग्रेडिएंट्स ला दिए, रख दिए, सफाई कर दी, ये कर दिए, छोटी छोटी, मतलब डेंजरस चीजें नहीं कि आग के साथ नहीं काम कर रहे, छुरियों के
हाँ
साथ
नहीं
नहीं कर
जाहिर
रहे,
जाहिर
लेकिन
जो उनकी
दे लुक
कैपेबिलिटी के अंदर है जाहिर है।
एग्जैक्टली। तो मुझे उससे कोई इशू नहीं है, और मुझे माँ बाप को रेंट देने से भी इशू नहीं है, ठीक है, मुझे वो भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है।
नेचुरल सी बात है कि अगर खर्चा है तो आप सपोर्ट कर सकते
क्योंकि
हो।
आप अपने आप हो गए हो ना, आप हो गए हो
हाँ।
कि आप अपना उठा सकते हो, एंड यू शुड बी टेकिंग रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। तो
हम्म।
ये जो नुआंसेस है ना शाहरुख, दे वेरी फ्रॉम कंट्री टू कंट्री एंड विद इन द कंट्री। अगर मैं ईस्ट कोस्ट पे हूँ यूएस के, मिड वेस्ट में फर्क है, सेम कंट्री है सब,
बिल्कुल सही है।
मतलब ओवरऑल लॉज, इनके जो स्टेट लॉज होते हैं, फेडरल लॉ भी है, स्टेट लॉज भी हैं, दे आर ऑल 19-20। तो ये नहीं होगा कि बहुत, मतलब यस देयर आर आउटलायर्स क्लियरली,
जाहिर वो तो होती है।
बट फॉर द मोस्ट पार्ट दे आर ऑल द सेम। ये नहीं होगा कि आपको अडल्ट समझा जा रहा है 18 पे न्यूयॉर्क में, लेकिन आपको कैलिफोर्निया में जब तक आप 30 की नहीं होते तब तक आपको अडल्ट नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा, इसमें भी आगे पीछे, राइट। और उसी के हिसाब से आपके ऊपर लीगल इश्यूज भी आते हैं, आपकी जो रिस्क, जो आप लोन्स ले सकते हो नहीं ले सकते हो। लेट्स से एक बच्चा है हु इज वेरी स्किल्ड, कैन स्टार्ट अ बिजनेस, लेकिन वो कहते हैं नहीं, बिकॉज द लॉ सेज यू आर नॉट गुड इनफ, तो व्हाटएवर, तो आपको हम नहीं दे सकते। सो इट इज, मेरे हिसाब से आपने सबको सर्व नहीं करना, मेजॉरिटी को सर्व करना है, और लॉ ऐसा हो कि जो आउटलायर्स हैं उनके लिए एक रीजनेबल अप्रोच हो, या एक पाथवे हो। अदरवाइज ज्यादातर ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट में जब हम ऑपरेट करते हैं तो इट बिकम्स वेरी सफोकेटिंग फॉर लॉट ऑफ पीपल। यहाँ पे रुकता था कि वी कैन टॉक अबाउट अदर थिंग्स, इसी को आगे लेके चलते हैं, बट आई विल स्टॉप देयर।
हाँ, अच्छा, अभी तक जो आपने बात की ना, इसमें 2 बातें हैं जो जिसमें मैं कह लें क्वेश्चन करूँगा। एक ये है कि जो आपने लास्ट बात की, ये बेसिकली आप बात कर रहे हैं कि जहाँ पे यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइज़ हो वो मॉरल चीज़ है। कि अगर डिसीजन ये है कि एक्स एक्शन करना अच्छा है या एक्स एक्शन ना करना अच्छा है, तो इसका डिसीजन मेकिंग फैक्टर ये है कि किससे जनरल गुड या जिसको मतलब फिलोसॉफिकली स्पीकिंग यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइज हम कर सकते हैं उस एक्शन की या ना करने की। फॉर एग्जांपल अगर समझे हम ये कहते हैं कि आपके पास सिर्फ लेट्स से 1 लीटर ऑफ पेट्रोल है। आप एक बंदा कहता है मुझे ये 1 लीटर पेट्रोल दो, तो मैं इससे जनरेटर चलाऊँगा, एसी चलाऊँगा और मज़े से सोऊँगा। एक बंदा ये कहता है कि मुझे 1 लीटर दो, मैं ना वहाँ जाके खाना लेके आऊँगा, सबको बाँटेंगे। मेरी गाड़ी में चला जाएगा। अब इस सिचुएशन में आप बहुत ईज़िली डिसाइड कर सकते हैं कि यूटिलिटी जिसकी ज़्यादा थी, उसको देना मॉरल था।
ठीक है।
अच्छा, अब अगर हम इसको एक और एस्पेक्ट से देखें कि बिल्कुल प्योरली कैपिटलिस्टिक सोसाइटी में, दोनों के पास पैसे थे। एक बंदा कहता है कि मुझे 1 लाख रुपए का 1 लीटर पेट्रोल बेच दो। एक बंदा कहता है मेरे पास तो सिर्फ 10,000 है। अब मोरालिटी का जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है वो चेंज हो गया। अब चेंज हो जाएगा कि देने वाले के लिए किसको देना ज़्यादा बेहतर है। अच्छा, अब बात ये है कि अगर हम इसी कॉन्सेप्ट पे चलें कि सेम एक्शन या मतलब सेम कॉन्सेप्ट यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइजेशन। अच्छा, वो जिस तरह मार्वल यूनिवर्स में जो वो थेनोस होता है, वो कहता है कि अगर आपने इस दुनिया को सर्वाइव करवाना है, तो 50% को मार दें ताकि अगला बाकी 50% थ्राइव करे। अब इस केस में भी वो तो यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइज करा रहा है। तो अब क्या वो ठीक था या वो गलत था?
डिपेंड्स ऑन द रिसोर्सेज।
रिसोर्सेज इतनी है कि सिर्फ 50% सर्वाइव कर सकते हैं।
तो फिर तो ठीक कह रहा हूँ, बिकॉज अगर वो नहीं करता तो स्लो ब्लीड में सबने खत्म हो जाना है।
सबने खत्म होना, हाँ, लेकिन आज नहीं होंगे।
हाँ, एग्जैक्टली।
टाइमिंग एस्पेक्ट आ गया ना।
What he is doing is basically he is chopping his arm to save the body.
हाँ,
तो ये कह रहा है कि आपने अगर जैसे सांप डस गया या लेट्स से कोई इन्फेक्शन हो गई है, तो लोग डॉक्टर कहते हैं देखो कहते नहीं, अब ये रिकवर नहीं हो सकती, अगर आपने जब तक ये टांग नहीं काटी तो इट्स गोना बी थ्रू आउट द बॉडी,
इन्फेक्शन हो जाएगी।
तो अब आपको यार नहीं देखो ये नहीं, यू हैव टू गो फॉर द बिगर बेनिफिट और द लेसर लॉस। यू कैन ऑपरेट ऑन बोथ साइड्स, so the bigger benefit or the lesser loss. अब ये जो आपने थानोस को एग्जांपल दिया है, ये इतना डिबेट होता है ये एग्जांपल।
हाँ, सही रहता है।
क्योंकि ऐसे
ये स्टोरी राइटर ने बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन पोस्ट किया ना पूरी दुनिया को। अच्छा, लेकिन अच्छा, अब हम ना अब इसको और एसेंशियल पे ले जाते हैं कि देखिए, तो अभी मूवी का सीन था ना, अब हम एक एक्चुअल एग्जांपल पे लेते हैं। समझे, हम ये कहते हैं कि चाइना में ओवर पॉपुलेशन होगी और गवर्नमेंट एनफोर्स करती है कि आप 2 बच्चे नहीं कर सकते। तो उसका इंटेंशन अच्छी है, उसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कोई इतनी मुश्किल भी नहीं है। लेकिन क्या ये डिसीजन आप कह सकते हैं कि इमोरल है कि आपका एक बेसिक राइट ऑफ पॉपुलेशन जो है वो छीना जा रहा है एज़ अ चाइनीज़ नेशनल, या अगर मतलब चाइना एक तो एग्जांपल है, ज़ाहिर उनके अपने होंगे और इकोनॉमिक्स होंगे, लेकिन हम एक जनरल प्योरली मॉरल कन्वर्सेशन में अगर बात करें। यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइज हो रही है, किसी को तो फायदा हो रहा है। अब वो क्या उस फैमिली को फायदा हो रहा है या नहीं, या जनरल चाइनीज पॉपुलेशन को फायदा हो रहा है?
ये बात आपकी देखो, अगर वो कहते हैं कि जी एज ए कंट्री कम्युनिस्ट मॉडल है, टुगेदर as a community, as a broader like 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion people of Communist Republic of China कह लो, तो what's in their favor कि population controlled हो ताकि resource पे load ना हो, और not just resource हो, frankly let's be frank, अगर ज्यादा population है it's more people to control, it's tougher to control.
हाँ, जाहिर
so एक तो आप बना सकते हैं ना resource की कहानी, दूसरी control की कहानी भी है. And when you marry catalysts like internet with a larger population, so it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's like 200. So there is a downside risk to it, but depopulation also has a huge problem. Japan में जिस तरह आज भी मैंने ग्रुप में एक दो जगहों पे शेयर किया है, Japan is like people are just not marrying, there's just not enough people coming together. अब वो एक वक्त में तो एक्सपेरिमेंट चल गया था, लेकिन आपने इसके लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस नहीं देखे, आपने सिर्फ एक शॉर्ट टर्म 20, और शॉर्ट टर्म में जब बात करता हूँ नेशनल लेवल पे, I'm talking about 20 years 30 years, that's what I'm thinking, तो 2-3 डेकेड्स की बात. लेकिन अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म सोचो, आपके पास एक क्राइसिस है इस वक्त, डीपॉपुलेशन. रशिया में भी यही है,
काफी जगह पे जो लोकल लोग तो कोई भी नहीं रह गए.
मैं वही कह रहा था कि द इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग इज कि शाहरुख, कि देयर इज अ वेरी हाई कोरिलेशन ऑफ depopulation or population decline where abundance is more. So जितने आप पैसे बना रहे हैं, जितने आप abundant हैं, जितनी टेक्नोलॉजी ज्यादा है, जितने आप डेवलप्ड हैं, उतनी पॉपुलेशन का ग्रोथ रेट कम होता जा रहा है, हाउस होल्ड साइज कम होता जा रहा है. एंड इट इज गेटिंग टू द पॉइंट, और जो उसकी लीडिंग इंडिकेटर्स हैं वो है कि मैरिज रेट्स भी कम हो रहे हैं. तो मैरिज रेट्स इज वन प्रॉक्सी. Not, I'm not saying कि यूएस के अंदर it means कि अगर मैरिज है तो बचा है, वरना नहीं, because a lot of kids outside of wedlock as well. Exactly. So, but it's at least one proxy कि यार हम जा किधर हैं. So we are going to be very abundant, living much longer, ठीक है, but without the need of a tribe. क्योंकि 100 साल पहले हमें 6-7 बच्चे पैदा करने थे, जिनमें से 3-4 ने सर्वाइव नहीं करना था टीनेज ईयर्स तक, बाकियों ने हमें संभालना था, जहां तक भी हमने संभालना था. अब ये हो रहा है कि आपको वो प्रोटेक्शन की जरूरत भी नहीं है, बिकॉज योर टैक्स पेयर मनी इज प्रोवाइडिंग सिक्योरिटी. आपको इलाज की भी इतनी वो नहीं है कि आपने कोई बड़े बड़े दूर गांव जाना है. मेडिसिन इज कमिंग टू योर रेस्क्यू. सो यू आर लाइक ओके, तो मुझे जो मेरे बच्चे बेटियों ने देना था वो तो मुझे गवर्नमेंट और एडवांस मेडिसिन दे रही है, ठीक है, और जहां तक मुझे कनेक्शन की जरूरत थी वो मुझे सोशल मीडिया दे रहा है, जो कि मैं आई एम जस्ट बीइंग एग्जैजरेट करके बोल रहा हूं, लेकिन ऑब्वियसली वो नहीं. तो फिर सोच रहे यार, तो डू आई रियली नीड टू हैव these liabilities for 18 years? क्योंकि people look at children as liabilities. जैसे कि अगर मैं तो 18 साल तक तो मेरे बत्ते लग गए यार. तो अब
लेकिन देखिए
ये चीज देखते हो तो that is a massive downside to the whole, कि जी फायदा अभी, नुकसान लेटर. अब वो नुकसान उठाने का टाइम आया है.
अच्छा देखिए, इस सिचुएशन में जो फॉर एग्जांपल हम अगर जापान की एग्जांपल लें, इसमें पेरेंट्स ने रियलाइज किया कि बच्चों का उनको फायदा नहीं हो रहा उतना ज्यादा जितना पहले होता था. इस वजह से एक मतलब पोटेंशियल जो पेरेंट बन सकता था वो अपनी डिसीजन ले जाए कि आई डोंट वांट टू बी अ पेरेंट, मैंने अभी बच्चे नहीं करते. लेकिन अगर ये राइट उससे छीन लिया जाए तो क्या वो मॉरल डिसीजन है या नहीं?
नहीं, मेरा नहीं ख्याल है.
अच्छा, अब हम वापस आते हैं कि अगर कोई भी कंट्री इसलिए ना आपको ओवर पॉपुलेट करने दे कि रिसोर्सेज ही नहीं है. अगर आपके 2 बच्चे होंगे तो दूसरा बच्चा भूखा मरेगा.
आप मुझे टैक्स करें.
वही मैं कह रहा हूँ कि अब ये इस सब्जेक्टिव मॉरलिटी का मसला ही है कि आप किसका फायदा
नहीं,
देखते हैं.
मैं कहता हूँ ना, मैं कहता हूँ कि जी हम कहते हैं, मैं ऐसी बात कर रहा हूँ, लेट्स से मुझे आप बनाने चाइना का मुझे जो है ना, या जापान का जो है ना, मैं सीईओ करने वाला
हाइपोथेटिकल मतलब
रूलर बना
डिक्टेटर
बना दे. उसके अंदर मेरी तरफ तो मैं तो ये बोलूंगा कि यार देखो, दिस इज वेयर वी वांट टू गो. दिस इज हमारी एक न्यूक्लियस. चलो अगर न्यूक्लियस फैमिलीज भी करनी है तो हाउस होल्ड ऑफ 4 इज आइडियल. एम फॉर हाउस होल्ड ऑफ 4. ओके, बट इफ यू आर डूइंग if you want to have a household of 6, then anything above 4 you pay
उसको टैक्स
tax
लग
on.
जाएगा, हाँ।
ठीक है,
क्योंकि
because
एज अ
that
स्टेट
will
नेशन
help
आप
us.
हाँ, कुछ भी पैसे तो जितना मर्जी मांगिए ना, वो तो आपका राइट है।
हाँ, वो आपका है ना. Now you can discourage it. Some people say, you know what, I don't care. Because you found a middle ground now. मेरा राइट भी नहीं छिना और मुझे बताया भी है कि स्टेट लेवल पे क्या पॉलिसी है. लेकिन
डिमोटिवेट
अगर
हो
आप
रहे हैं
मुझे
आप, लेकिन विदाउट
हाँ हाँ, and you
स्टॉपिंग।
can make a call. कोई यार बात सुनो, पैसे हमारे पास है नहीं, मतलब एक और
हम
बच्चा
कैसे
पैदा
करेंगे? हाँ।
करके, मतलब how the heck are we going to pull this off? We need there are some families where you need dual income. आप चल ही नहीं सकते उसके
हाँ,
बगैर.
बिल्कुल ऐसे।
ठीक है ना. अगर हस्बैंड क्या कहते हैं वो रेंट पे करवा रहा है किसी तरीके से, तो बीवी जो है वो खाना जमा कर रही है किसी तरीके से. So it is that kind of situation. So it depends on economic strata as well. But I would simply say कि always give people full right, but tax to guide. कि भाई जाना हमने इधर.
अच्छा, अभी आपने ना जो एक सेकंड पॉइंट था आपकी अभी तक वाली कन्वर्सेशन में, एक तो ये था कि अगर हम सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी रखते हैं तो यूटिलिटेरियन अप्रोच नहीं काम करती, क्योंकि यूटिलिटेरियन अप्रोच में जो बेनिफिट ऑफ द ग्रेटर गुड जो है वो जनरली फिर इंडिविजुअल गुड को बिल्कुल खत्म कर देता है। तो जो हमारे आजकल के बेसिक ह्यूमन राइट के टेनेंट्स है वो उसके खिलाफ चली जाती है बात। जिस तरह से अभी आपने कहा कि मिडिल ग्राउंड लाना ज़रूरी हो जाता है इस सिचुएशन में। अच्छा, दूसरी बात ये थी कि अगर समझें हम ये कहते हैं कि थ्रू सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी किसी ने ये कहा कि ये चीज़ गलत थी। समझें चोरी करना गलत था। अब वो जितनी सॉरी थ्रू सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी थ्रू बेसिक कह लें ह्यूमन इंस्टिंक्ट किसी ने कहा कि कुछ तो ऑब्वियस चीज़ें ना कि ज़ाहिर है किसी को मारना गलत है। तो अब किसी ने लेकिन मार दिया किसी को तो उसकी पनिशमेंट क्या होगी? या उसकी कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज़ क्या होगी? पनिशमेंट से ज़्यादा बेहतर ये है। तो अब एक बंदा कहता है कि जब मैंने इसको मारा था ना, तो मैंने अपना फ़ायदा सोचा था क्योंकि मुझे भूख लगी हुई थी और खाना इसके पास था। मैंने किसी को तो मारना ही था खाना चोरी करने के लिए। तो मैंने इसको मार दिया, तो मेरा एक्शन इसको मारने का तो था ही नहीं, मेरा एक्शन तो चोरी का था। तो मुझ पे मर्डर का तो केस ना हो, मुझ पे तो थेफ्ट का केस हो। और थेफ्ट में भी वो जिस तरह अमेरिका में आजकल चल रहा है कि $1000 से नीचे की थेफ्ट तो वैसे ही आपको जेल भी नहीं भेजते। तो अब अगर ये सारे कंडीशंस मिला लें तो फिर कॉन्सिक्वेंस का एलिमेंट थ्रू सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी को बहुत इजीली मॉडिफाई कर सकते हैं। सॉरी ये थ्रू विदाउट एनी ऑब्जेक्टिव रूलिंग के क्या चीज़ करना है। तो उसके बारे में क्या कहेंगे फिर?
मुझे थोड़ा सा मुझे आप समराइज कर, क्योंकि मैं मेरी इंटरप्रिटेशन शायद थोड़ी सी और है. अब मुझे दोबारा अगर आप समराइज कर दो इस पॉइंट को, तो आई नो आई एम क्लियर इन माय हेड.
हाँ, अच्छा अब ऐसे देखें कि एक बेसिक इमोरल काम कोई करता है। फॉर एग्जांपल किसी ने किसी को मार दिया, तो उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस कौन डिसाइड करेगा कि क्या चीज इसका आप कह लें एप्रोप्रिएट रिस्पांस, जिस तरह आजकल लफ्ज चल रहा है।
हाँ, मैं समझ गया. लेकिन
तो
इसी वजह से डिग्रीज होती है ना, इसी वजह से डिग्रीज देते हैं. सो लेट्स से द एंड रिजल्ट इज अनफॉर्चुनेटली किलिंग समबडी. इंटेंशन था, दैट्स डिग्री 1. एक्सीडेंटल था, वो डिग्री 2. अगर कोई आप कुछ कर रहे थे लेकिन आपकी नेग्लिजेंस की वजह से कुछ इधर हो गया, तो डिग्री 3. सो इट्स लाइक दे डिग्रीफाइड, राइट? सो उनको होता ये है कि आपने नुकसान तो किया है, उसकी डिग्री वेरी कर रही है. एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज इंटेंशन, कि आपने सोच समझ के कुछ किया. और कहा जी नहीं मैं तो जी खाना खा रहा था, मैं तो खाने के चक्कर में था, तो
गलती से कुछ हो गया.
हाँ. और अगर वो उसमें वो कहानी डाल दे कि जी देखें इन्फ्लेशन इज 300%, हम लोग घर पे थे, हम सड़कों पे आ गए हैं, हम भूखे नंगे हैं, वो डिग्री और कम होती जा रही है, बिकॉज इट्स लाइक you are identifying the cause. If the cause is not intention and malintention नहीं है, then the cause is something else that led to this accident. So ये आपको जिस तरह फाइनेंशियल रिस्क एनालिसिस है, इस तरह आपका सोसाइटल रिस्क एनालिसिस अगर आप करें, तो ये सारी बातें उधर ही आएंगी कि पॉपुलेशन की हो या किसी को कत्ल करने पे हो. देयर आर वेरियस लेवल्स वेयर यू कैन से कि आई हैव टू जज बेस्ड ऑन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. I cannot judge based on the outcome.
सही है,
It cannot be too black and white.
नहीं वो सही है, लेकिन अब क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये कौन डिसाइड करेगा कि किस लेवल ऑफ कह लें वायलेशन का क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस है. फॉर एग्जांपल लाइफ टाइम प्रिजन इम्प्रिजनमेंट जो है वो किस वक्त होगी, डेथ किस तरफ होगी, या वो जो कैपिटल पनिशमेंट कब वैलिड होगी, या कौन सी ऐसी चीज होगी जिसमें आपको सिर्फ फाइन लगेगा, अगर फाइन लगेगा तो कितना फाइन लगेगा, ये राइट किसके पास होगा फिर?
So obviously, abhi to is with the lawmakers, right? So whether it's the Senate or whether it's in the Parliament or whatever your political और politically
स्टेट में बेसिकली स्टेट के पास है
आर्किटेक्टेड स्टेट आर्किटेक्टेड आपके जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस है वो कर रहे हैं, वो कहते हैं कि भाई
अच्छा
हमारे हिसाब से ये होना चाहिए, अभी तो ये है।
हाँ अच्छा अब मैं ये कहता हूँ कि अगर आप यूएस में आप सेम काम करते हैं तो लेट्स से आपको उसकी जो पेनल्टी है ना वैसे ही कह रहे हूँ कि $1 लाख देनी पड़ती है।
ठीक है।
अगर आप पाकिस्तान में हैं तो आपको $1 लाख देनी पड़ती है। लेट्स से पाकिस्तान में
Yep,
स्टेट
yep,
मैंडेटेड
yep,
पेनल्टी है।
yep.
तो एक बंदा जो अमेरिका में रहता है वो उसको क्या मसला है वो पाकिस्तान में आके वो करके $1 लाख देके चला जाएगा।
Yeah,
तो ये वाली
exactly.
हाँ तो ये वाला तो एक तरह से जो स्टेट को हमने दिया हुआ राइट और क्योंकि
Yeah.
हर स्टेट डिफरेंट है अपने मुताबिक कह लें डिसीजन लेती है तो वो
Yep.
तो फिर अगर आप ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखें वो तो अब आजकल के दौर में खास तौर पे जब आप पाकिस्तान में बैठ के अमेरिका में फ्रॉड कर सकते हैं या अमेरिका में
Yep.
बैठ के यूके
Yep.
में किसी को हायर कर सकते हैं मारने के लिए तो
Yep.
जब वो सिचुएशन आ गई तो अब फिर आप कैसे कहेंगे कि जो जिसने समझे पाकिस्तान में बैठ के यूके को के बंदे को मरवा दिया
हाँ,
अब
हाँ.
उसको $1 लाख देगा या $1 लाख देगा
So exactly.
दोनों स्टेटमेंट देते हैं
So I think वो एक तो jurisdiction की बात है ना, ये किधर होती है. But अगर मैं इसको मैं simplify इस तरह करता हूँ, whether it is a company that changes its headquarter or whether it's somebody who marries his 8th wife, क्योंकि allowed नहीं है multiple marriages in a state in America, वो कहता है मैं बाहर जाके कर लेता हूँ. अच्छा, लेकिन मैं register नहीं करता US में, तो टेक्निकली मैंने यूएस के हिसाब से मैंने नहीं किया हुआ, मैंने एक्चुअली किया हुआ लूपहोल
किसी और मुल्क में किया हुआ इधर नहीं किया हुआ बिल्कुल
मैंने अपनी कंपनी जो है ना ब्रिटिश वर्जिन आइलैंड्स में बना ली है, ऑफशोर कंपनी
टैक्स नहीं लगेगा
सारे टैक्सेस हैं, मैं टैक्सेस नहीं दे रहा. तो पीपल हैव दीज एबिलिटीज एंड इट इज कंसिडर्ड लीगल. नाउ इज इट कंसिडर्ड मॉरल एंड इट
हम तो मोरालिटी की बात करें
अब ये अब जब मॉरल की बात है तो यार अब आपको सबको पता है, आप जो है ना यू आर फाइंडिंग लूपहोल्स, दैट्स ऑल इट इज. You know, it's this, but I think your question is, then how should a person be judged, or should there be a way to penalize the person morally, even though legally he is?
नहीं खैर मेरा क्वेश्चन शायद ये नहीं है कि उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस उसको करना लाजमी है, क्योंकि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे हम कौन होते हैं कि हम किसी को जज करें या उनको कॉन्सिक्वेंस तक लेके जाएं. लेकिन एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग अगर हम ये डिसाइड कर रहे हैं कि जो हम कर रहे हैं वो मॉरल है, नहीं ये सिर्फ पर्सनल डेवलपमेंट की है. मतलब मैं नहीं कह रहा कि इस कॉन्वर्सेशन से हम ये रिजल्ट निकालें कि अगले बंदे को मैं क्या करूंगा जब वो इमोरल काम करेगा. मेन पर्पस ये कि मैं कैसे डिसाइड करूं कि हाँ नहीं लेकिन ये मेरे डिसीजन के लिए कि मैं कैसे डिसाइड करूं कि विद इन अ सोसाइटी कौन सा एक्शन मेरे लिए इमोरल है. फॉर एग्जांपल समझे कि मैं आज सोचूं कि मैं टैक्स अवॉइड कर सकता हूं बहुत इजीली, मैं इन्हें को कहूंगा इस तरह से अकाउंट्स मैनेज कर दे, वो कर देंगी. लेकिन कहां पे वो लाइन इमोरल हो जाएगी, क्योंकि उससे मेरा फायदा तो हो रहा है लेकिन सोसाइटी को लॉस हो रहा है लेट्स से टैक्स कम देने की वजह से. तो पर्पस ये है कि मेरे लिए मोरालिटी का सोर्स क्या होना चाहिए. अब सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी में जो मुझे इश्यू अभी तक नजर आ रहा है वो ये है कि सोर्स एक्चुअली आपका अपना जहन है या स्टेट लॉज है. तो लॉ तो वैसे ही लीगल बात होगी, हमने अभी डिस्कस किया कि एक्चुअली लॉज जो है वो सोर्स ऑफ मोरालिटी हो ही नहीं सकते, क्योंकि लॉज में लूप होल निकल आते हैं जस्ट आप लोकेशन चेंज कर लें. इसका मतलब आप या तो पूरी दुनिया का लॉ लीगल सिस्टम एक हो जाए, वो भी नहीं हो सकता, बहुत मुश्किल काम है. तो एंड में ये बचा कि आपके पास सिर्फ अपना लॉ कह लें या एक पर्सनल मॉरल सिस्टम बच गया, जो आप कह सकते हैं इन द सिचुएशन ऑफ अ सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी बीइंग द राइट सोर्स आप कह लें. तो अब मुझे इसमें मसला ये नजर आता है कि अगर ऐसा हो जाए कि हम ये प्रूव कर दें कि जी बस सिर्फ सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी ही ठीक है, तो फिर तो जो मर्डरर्स होते हैं वो कहते हैं कि हम तो ठीक काम कर रहे हैं, ये तो बंदा गलत था इसलिए मैंने इसको मार दिया. तो उसके लिए वो अपना एक्शन ही ठीक था. अब उसको लीगल कॉन्सिक्वेंस क्या दी वो डिफरेंट बात है. उसके लिए ये इस उसको ना मारने का कॉन्सिक्वेंस होना चाहिए, जिस तरह समझे पाकिस्तान में भी हुआ कि किसी ने कुछ बोल दिया इस्लाम के खिलाफ तो उसको मार दिया. अब मारने वाले के लिए तो वो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा है, वो तो कह रहे हैं कि अगर इसको ना मारें तो ये ज्यादा नुकसान है दुनिया का. तो अब मसला मुझे ये आ रहा है कि फ्रॉम अ पर्सनल एक्शन पर्सपेक्टिव, अब देखें वो बंदा जब बैठा था ये सोचने के लिए कि जी मैंने इसको मारना है, वो कैसे डिसाइड करे कि इसको मारना मॉरल है या नहीं.
इट गोज बैक टू व्हाट वी वर डिस्कसिंग अर्ली. आपकी जो अपब्रिंगिंग हो रही है उसके अंदर आपको आपका कल्चर, आपका इट गोज बैक टू दीज फोर्सेस, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी इजी लीगली to put laws. Law is the easy part.
हाँ, वो तो एक
ठीक है?
कंट्रोल करने का तरीका है ना, हाँ, ताकि
लेकिन
सोसाइटी सर्वाइव कर सके।
हाँ, because you say कि यार कुछ parameters तो दो ना यार,
हाँ,
कुछ तो
बिल्कुल,
parameters बनाओ.
basic principle, हाँ, बिल्कुल।
But I think the hardest part is how you shape yourself as a human being. So if you're shaped by a certain theology, वो आपको बहुत NOCs दे सकती है, बहुत सारे NOCs दे सकती है जो कि आपका दिमाग without it will not give you that. So somebody will say कि जैसे आपने जो example दिया है, तो दूसरा बंदा अगर कोई हो कहेगा जी सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता, लेकिन कहेगा नहीं पैदा इस वजह से होता है क्योंकि वो, लेकिन इस केस में कहेगा नहीं यही तरीका है और कोई तरीका ही नहीं, क्योंकि ये वो चार वजूहात दे देगा, justification. That's like because see what हमें असल में जिसमें मैं कहता हूँ ना रेगुलेटर चाहिए होते हैं. माँ बाप का काम जो होता है to implant the regulator in the child's mind. उसका ये कि बच्चे तू पाकिस्तान में है, तू अमेरिका में है, तू जिधर मर्जी है, तू सुबह है, दोपहर को है, शाम को है, तू काम पे है, तू अकेला है, तू किसी के साथ है, how you treat women, how you treat money, how you treat your boss. There are certain regulators जो कि आपकी personality के अंदर embedded होते हैं, and they're very latent या hidden.
Subtle होते हैं उसकी
वो trigger होते हैं कुछ चीजों से. अब मैं आपको एक छोटा सा अभी बात करते हुए मेरे ज़हन में एक आइडिया है कि मैं जो ट्रेनिंग्स कराता हूँ, कुछ जो सॉफ्ट स्किल्स ट्रेनिंग्स होती हैं, one of the things that we have seen.
Hey Jonathan.
Hi Jonathan.
Hi guys, thought I'd join.
Hello.
Yeah, wonderful to have you.
Yes.
So one of the things that I saw because now Jonathan's here, I'm gonna
we have to shift to English now. Yeah,
we have to shift to English. So now
Jonathan, you're muted.
No, I'm just saying thank you for compensating for my ignorance.
No issues. No issues.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So now what the challenge is that if I had this one gentleman and he came from a very conservative background. Okay. So I told him, okay, when you meet somebody, you have to, look them, make decent eye contact, and decent is defined as looking right here in the over here somewhere, and then look away for 2 seconds, and but keep it like
Not
don't
to
be
stare,
locked
but
in.
still.
Yeah, exactly. No staring, right?
Yeah.
So I told him all of this. Then, and we were switching partners. So there was like, 2 people at a time were talking to each other, and I was just observing their body language. So he was talking to a guy, then there's another guy and another guy, and then the fourth one was a lady. So he got up and left. Like he got up from the chair and stepped aside, and I was like, "What happened?" It's like, "No, I'm not comfortable." I'm like, "No." But like in the world, you're gonna come across.
That's a reality.
You do realize that. Yeah. So what's the problem? And he couldn't articulate what the problem was. He was stuck in this place. He was like, "Well, it's not right." But no, he said something like, "It doesn't feel right." So it goes back to what we were saying between right and wrong. Like, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? She's a human being. What do you mean it's not right?" It's like, no, I'm not used to it. I don't talk to him, and you're putting me in this uncomfortable situation, and that too, like just me and her on a table. Like I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
But then this is exactly what the issue with subjective morality is, because talking to a woman should not be inherently immoral, generally speaking. I mean, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. But if it is immoral for him,
yes,
then that's the issue with subjective morality, that who is right in this situation, because from his side, he's perfectly accurately convinced that this is something that I'm not supposed to do. And the source can be whatever, it's up to him. But ultimately the challenge becomes in this exact situation, if you force him, he will say, what kind of an immoral teacher do I have that he's forcing me to talk to, in this way. And even when he goes back and talks to his parents about this, then he will say, oh, no, just don't go there, because that's an immoral school. But then you're saying that because you have to face the reality, this is something that you have to do. So if you have to do this, then it's not immoral. So this is the problem with subjective morality, that who is the decision maker then on what is correct and what is not correct? Because as me who wants to decide what is correct and incorrect for myself, who do I follow then? Do I follow him or do I follow you? Because I cannot say that I will follow who I resonate with more. because that's then again one more person influencing my morality, and there's no end of which is still correct and incorrect in this situation. So in this
I
situation,
think, yeah.
so just one thing to add, that in this situation the variables are the same. So like we discussed before, that with the change in variables on culture, location, perspective, the morality can change. But in this situation, like you mentioned, it's the exact same situation, exact same context, exact same position, exact same need. I mean, it's his need to actually be able to communicate better, not even your need. But still, only one of you can be correct. Both of you cannot be correct. So then which one
Well,
is correct?
I don't want to hog the conversation. I'm going to let Jonathan jump in. Can I just say one
Okay,
thing
sure,
before
sure,
we
yeah,
go to the next thing?
Yeah.
Jonathan, promise I'm not going to take long. Look, I think that when you are, your morals can define your life. So if
Right.
this guy decides never to talk to a female, he can live a life without having to engage in that. How does that help or hurt him? He has to do that scorecard at the end of his life or during life or whatever it is, right?
No, but the question is but the question is not if the morals can define the life. The question is who defines the morals.
Well, in his case, it's been defined by his parents and his society and the people he is around, right? He was born into that. It was not his choosing. So
But then
that programming is already there.
But then isn't it unfortunate for him to be born into such a situation versus someone who was born into a better informed, better educated parents?
I'm going to let Jonathan go in, but my short answer is yes. It's unfortunate.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Jonathan, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with Michael, my son, and we were talking about how do you, I kind of have a slightly, how would you say, conservative view around choosing a coach or a therapist, because some of them are not good. Not all of them are good. So he was kind of challenging me, Dad, why do you have this sort of be very careful when you're choosing a coach or you're choosing a therapist in particular, actually. And I was kind of saying to him, what I really just give me flesh it out and I'll align with where you guys are coming from. I said, really, my problem is two. The person who often has a problem doesn't invest enough. They often go to the first therapist that they find and maybe doesn't go and visit maybe 5 of them. And even if they don't feel they're capable, look up references for them, talk to ex people who went to them, even if they don't feel capable to evaluate the therapist themselves, but kind of put an investment, because you're going to put your mind in some way in their hands. You're going to allow them become the caretaker of your mind. Now I'm going to come to the point where you guys were going. When a person who's a potential in need, they think they want help, or they do want help, and they're going to go out and search. You're going to search for a therapist or a coach or a nutritionist or a fitness consultant, whatever. It doesn't matter, whatever.
Yeah, they need whatever.
How do they often make the decision? They often make it subjectively. So they kind of, well, let's say I even put the investment in. I'll go with, well, which one did I feel more secure with or confident in?
Yeah.
Is that good or bad? And I think this is where I'm going to give another possible answer is, if I go to 5 therapists and one makes me feel more comfortable, is that the right answer? But that's subjective thinking. Now, if I go to 5 therapists, or I'll use a fitness example. If I go to 5 fitness coaches and one of them makes me feel great, the other one is going to give, the one who's actually best for me might be telling me, oh, I have to do 10,000 steps a day. I have to eat like this. It might not feel as good, but it might be the better for me. So my subjective opinion might go against the best result. So I'm just
which we're calling the objective opinion.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to do a comparison, as in subjective can sometimes be wrong because we're ignorant. And I'm not saying sometimes it can also be right. But I'm just saying there is that battle between ignorance and competence somehow. Go ahead, Saad. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Jonathan, on that note, so we also have, I think Sanya is also online.
Yes, Sanya is here.
And
hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you? So On that note, like this is a conversation she and I had several months back, where so she went through her own physical transformation, what have you. She can speak for herself on that, but she deliberately chose a trainer who would put her into the discomfort zone. So the idea was what's good for me long term and what's really bad for me short term. And it was this decision that either I suffer now and for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, or I continue to be delusional and I suffer for the rest of my life. And there was this which one I do, and I think all of us know that, but many of us are either second guessing, not inspired enough, not motivated enough, not disciplined enough, you name it. But it's we often go with the current feeling. This because if this trainer were to say, "Oh no, everything is great," I can assure you, and she can speak for herself, but I'm sure she would not go with her. She knew that her pain needed a proper solution that would also be painful. And I think that's kind of the maturity that one has to have, I would say, to then make decisions in life.
But then
there
I
are
would
no
call
shortcuts.
I would call that an advanced attitude when it comes to that, because we
I agree
really
with that.
know that the people, but I think most people, unfortunately, and that includes myself and probably you guys at a certain point, we have this inherent laziness. What's the easiest path to where I want to get to? Now, to someone to go beyond that and say, I need adversity in this area, which is kind of what you've just described. That, for me, that's an advanced attitude to going towards something. And, I would say the majority of people don't have that, and whether that's to invest in, time to understand, is this person really competent? Am I ready to suffer with the adversity? It doesn't mean kill yourself, but like the adversity to overcome this problem. But that kind of, we call it level 1, level 2. Level 1, we're all inherently lazy. Then there are people who are prepared to confront something, to face adversity, to know it's going to be a bit painful to solve this problem. If I try and look for the easy way, it's going to take much longer. I'm guessing that,
But I think the same thing applies to the example Shark gave about this guy, or at least in my example, this guy who was reluctant to talk to women. Like, he has to sort of make an assessment of the kind of life I want to live, the kind of world I want to be in, am I going to be dealing with women? If I'm not comfortable with it, do I come up with a path to make that, to find a balance between how I'm raised and how I want to live in this new world? Because our generation, like all of us here, are going through these transitions. Our parents and their parents and their parents never went to this level of, like challenging their morals and challenging their culture. They never had
They
to
just followed what their parents told them, basically.
Yeah. This is why I think this topic is so important, because we are under such it's an internal battle, like what's right? Is what your parents did was right, or what you're doing is right? Is it what your son is going to do? Is that right? Like, how do you make those, make those decisions? And who decides what's right?
I heard a phrase which might be useful. My ideal life is on the other side of the problems I'm not prepared to face.
That does make sense.
I guess as a coach, of the ones I'm not prepared to face, and it's kind of like,
prepared to face.
And I think you probably sound, I know you're probably the coach in this group, is you probably see that, they're not prepared to face that. And but then if you take someone like Sanya, who said, I'm prepared to face this problem and hit the pain, then part of her ideal life is going to fruition.
Yes.
Exactly.
I would actually like to add one thing here. As Saud mentioned that, initially when I started my fitness journey, I actually had no idea. And Saud knows this, but just to give you an idea, a little background about it, like I never had to, and again, had to go to the gym. I never knew what fitness was until the point where I actually felt like, it's absolutely necessary for me. And at that point, the first time, so I had to go through this cycle twice in my life. The first time I had no idea what I'm getting into. But once you
Mm.
start seeing results, obviously it motivates you. And I just speak for myself, not for everybody, because everybody has, you know, they don't have the end goal in mind. And for a person like me, obviously I had this vision that this is how I want to be, or this is how I want to look towards the end of this whole process. But then the second time around, as they say, like, when you know better, you should do better. So second
Mm.
time around, when you're aware of the fact that, okay, this is what it's going to take, this is going to be the process. And whenever I talk to Saud about it, I always say that this one liner actually stuck with me and it's going to be with me for the rest of my life, that just trust the process and you have to be
Mm.
patient. And it's basically like it applies everywhere, in any capacity in life, where no matter what you do, it's a fitness journey, or it's like your studies, it's in nutrition, whatever you want to talk about.
Mm.
When it comes to this, it's like you have to trust the process. I know what I'm gonna get when this journey ends. So I mean, it's also important for your client or the other person to know that, okay, we get it, this is the end goal, this is where you're going to get. But then having a trainer, or a mentor, I would say. I don't call her my trainer, I call her my mentor, because not only it's your physical journey, fitness journey, it has to do a lot with your mental strength. And you don't realize what kind of strength you are gaining throughout that whole process. So I feel like, sometimes you really have to show that end result to the other person for them to be able to feel motivated. And just
Mm.
then, basically, it's easier to say, like, go with the flow. It Sometimes it doesn't really happen. You can't really always go with the flow. And then there are like these little things in life, like, you have to be disciplined. It's a mental game. More than it's a
Can,
physical game, it's a mental game. You have to be mentally strong enough to believe in that end goal that you're going after. So,
can, can I ask you a question, Sonia? And
sure.
you don't, the physical part is actually, and I don't want to know the physical part actually, is you want to lose a certain amount of weight, or you want to put up a certain amount of muscle, or you want to run a certain distance, whatever it was, that was your goal.
Yeah.
I'm going through it right now at the moment. I've lost 9 kilos in the last year. I plan on losing more, but
Hmm.
the physical part is actually easy. What I have found is two generalizations. I had wrong or misinformed ideas in my head, which I have changed my idea about, and
Mm.
me discovering and becoming aware of them. I can give you examples if you want. And the other is I had biases that I wasn't aware of. But during the process of physically following the system better and better, I've let go of wrong ideas and I have better. Might not be perfect ideas, but I have better ideas. And
Right.
I've become aware of some of my biases. And those two mental wins for me, and there were
Mm.
multiple of each one of them, are
Yeah.
actually are what's allowing me to physically improve. So I was going to ask you, what
Hmm.
were some of the mental wins that you had? What were some of the ideas that you discovered weren't as good as what they could have been, and now you have a better one? Or what were some of the biases or triggers, maybe I'll call them as well?
Hmm.
Food was celebrated in your family as you grew up, so food was a way of whatever it was. What were the
Hmm.
mental wins during that process? I'd love to hear that.
So, and this is, again, it's just me. I'm a kind of person, when it's not even about, like, I want to have uh, abs. I want to have, like, this, that. For me, it was literally both the times where I need to lose weight. But then obviously, towards the end of that whole journey, it was basically I got abs and I lost weight. And, I feel mentally and physically strong. But then initially, before hiring my trainer, I always had an idea that, oh, this is simple, I can do it myself. And as you said, like, we come from a background where food is celebrated. For me personally, even if like I cannot live without carbs. So I'm like, let me just try it myself first. So I starved myself. I thought like I'm going into calorie deficit, so I'm obviously gonna lose weight, but that was not the case. Um, and and I cannot emphasize enough on the fact that a trainer that I had, and she's actually a very close friend as well, so she obviously understood exactly what I was going after. I cannot live without carbs. And she made sure that, each program that I followed, I had my carbs each and every single day. So I mean, I just felt like, um, I'm kind of lost in the middle of that whole thing. Like, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
detoxing right now.
if I were to just fill in, maybe I think the point is that the wins that Jonathan is talking about is that you you got to stay close to your your pro
Preference.
carbness, if you will, preference, but also have enough knowledge and awareness and insight and how to use that knowledge and still have a win-win on both ends.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the reason I just explained the whole thing was because I initially, when you start something, and again, sticking to the topic of like fitness and physical journey, it's like I have I have a set time in mind as well, right? So I don't allow myself to go on to this whole idea for like a year or like 6 months, and each to their own. No judgments there. I give myself only 3 months. And so what happens before I start those 3 months journey, 2 months prior to that, I experiment everything. So for me, it's like I'm gonna eat less. Maybe I'm gonna achieve my goal. I'm gonna work out more and eat less. Am I gonna gain muscle? No. My bias towards carbs, I would just, basically carbs is everything to me. I don't really care about protein. So that again is wrong. It doesn't really, the equation doesn't really, there is no balance there. Until I actually reach the point where I get help from my nutritionist and my trainer to tell me that you have to create a balance here. But then, as I said, like, and just to give you an idea, for me, 3 months, both times, it was actually 21 kgs, which is around 45 pounds, 42 pounds, something like that, roughly. So to be able to achieve that, I understand everybody has different schedule, different kind of motivation. But then when I know, I know. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you go by what others are saying. We have these social platforms that we go by, like, okay, this person is telling us like you should eat this way or that way. The first time I did it with really hardcore workout regime, and then the second time, my trainer believes in the fact that if she's not physically present there, she's not going to train you. uh, so basically she helped me with the nutrition plan, and then with that, I had, again, I just believed in the fact that it has to be at the gym. It's not gonna, like, nutrition alone, it's not gonna help me achieve what I want to achieve. But then she proved me wrong, because it was a process. It was a mixture. I mean, and I'm not saying when I was following the nutrition plan, I did not go to the gym. In fact, again, I'm one of those people who actually go crazy over these things. So I'm a kind of person you will see in the gym at 3 a.m. And then when I log out, I'm at the gym at 6 p.m. again. So I know what it takes, but then initially it takes some time to accept the fact that, you can do without it. So I don't know if I answered your question
No,
or not.
just kind of maybe wrapping that into the topic of today, which is like, you did this transformation. You thought, let's say, if you just simplified binary, right and wrong, you were in a wrong state, you wanted to go to the right state. Was it a lot of social pressure, or was it something that you decided that the wrong state was wrong because you thought it was wrong and you wanted to? Because again, because the conversation today is revolving around let's just say the modalities of morality.
Yeah.
Like what is right? Like morality is, okay, what's right, what's wrong? Was it right of you? And by the way, I'm sure society is going to judge you regardless. You don't lose the weight, society is
Yeah,
going to judge you. You lose the weight, society
absolutely.
is going to judge you, right?
I mean, my turning points have always been that one person, and could be some random person who would say, these words, which I feel like are derogatory, but at the same time, they help me a lot. And again, each to their own. Not everybody takes it like I take those things. So once, let's say, for example, a friend said, "Oh, we have never seen you that big." Oh, that big stuck with me. Like, I know I lost my sleep for like I couldn't sleep.
Okay,
I was
were
like,
they objectively correct?
yes,
Tarak, is that your follow-up?
correct. They were,
Yeah. No,
unfortunately.
so my take on this is that, so like Jonathan questioned, that what were the mental wins that ultimately led to showing that the journey was successful? Because the physical results you can probably get through other means as well, and everyone has been through a different set of journey and they got the same results. So the actual challenge is in the fitness you can say program. It's not to decide on which physical activities to take on, because that can vary. You have a lot of options basically, but
Yeah.
which mental challenges you are ready to take on. And from Jonathan's point, I understand that, and also from Sania's answer, I understand that for some people who are able to achieve that level of, you can say, sophistication in their thinking, that they can form a good subjective morality, it works. Because they have the capacity to actually make the right decision on what is good or bad. But like Jonathan said, the majority of the people are not like this. So they're
Yeah,
going to
they're
be
not.
lazy, and they're going to listen to the first person that tells them what's moral and what's immoral.
So
But
Tarak,
And they're going to
Tarak,
stay
it's
quiet.
before I let Sania, can I
yeah,
just interject for 1 second?
sure.
So if I were to summarize this, what you're saying is, when Sania went through this transformation, she had her, let's say, mental framework upgraded. Like
Yeah.
she
I
learned
would
something she didn't know before.
I
And
would
And
say that
that allows her to make decisions which are aligned with her future direction.
no,
Correct, Jonathan?
no. So I would say
Yes.
that actually, I would say that before she went to the journey, she was in the right mindset to actually take the journey, learn from it,
Oh,
and
okay,
then
okay,
act
okay.
upon it. So,
yeah,
so it's like,
Absolutely as well.
and also it's like, once you have actually gone through the process, you understand that the ability to think clearly. And it's with everybody, like, to when you achieve something, that sense of achievement helps you a lot with other things too. So it's like mental clarity. I after the first time when I achieved my goal, I knew, like, all the mental blockages that I had, like, I was resisting on, like, eating healthy. I mean, I thought I was a healthy eater, but I was not, clearly not. And then, by the way, just to give you an idea, the trainer that I have is the National Physique Competitor winner, and that's what she has done for like 2 decades. So she has a lot of knowledge in this area. So coming from her, obviously, I had this comfort that what she's telling me, she knows her stuff. She was a pro. So I was left with no other choice but to follow her instructions. But along that way, when I saw that mental clarity that I was getting, the goal that I was achieving, when I started seeing the changes, it completely changed my perspective. At that point, I mean, both the times I felt like, while I was 2 months into this plan, I wasn't really worried about my physical achievement at that point. I knew I was going to get there. It was the mental strength and the discipline and everything else that I was getting. And so, to answer your question, when you said, like, what were the pressures? Social pressure, of course. Now when we go out, we have these social media platforms. We look at these, you know, models and, like, those clothes that we want to fit in. We want to look a certain way. That is one thing. And the other kind of a person that I consider myself to be is, I just have set goals for myself. I don't like, when I gained weight, as I mentioned, like, this one person said, we have never seen you this big. Okay, so it's going to be there for the rest of my life, but I'm going to change that for myself. But then their other thing is, when I lose all the weight, and the first reaction when you get like, oh my God, you look unhealthy. No, I don't. I mean, let's just go to the gym. I
You're
set
damned
my
if you
own.
do, you're damned if you don't. Either way,
Yeah,
you're going to be judged.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I know if I go to the gym, I have set my own records of doing planks for 3.5 minutes, So if somebody claims to be like fit, okay, then let's just prove yourself. So I take it that way. And again, each to their own. Everybody
Yeah,
has
but
their
I think
own.
it's Shahrukh. It goes back to what Jonathan was saying. Like, then Sanya would be a bit of an outlier, because for most people, having that level of conviction, clarity, purpose, this is my goal. I could care less what anybody says. I'll use negative words as motivation, and I'm going to create. She's creating her own reality, and also, I would say morality, because it comes down to body image.
Yeah.
Body image is a huge thing, right? It's like, what do you think of yourself? Self-esteem, how you deal with people in the world, how you communicate. So it's that there's a lot of this taking it on herself, and but really following the lead of somebody who is a subject matter expert. So again, it goes back to, I want this, I absolutely want this, and I want to build awareness in achieving it.
Yeah.
Right. So both of these two things combined, I think we're able to create that sense of right versus wrong for her. Like, wherever I am right now, it's absolutely wrong, and
Plus,
wherever
it
I need to
also
go, it's
helps in
absolutely right.
different aspects too. I start seeing changes in the way I think, the way I communicate, the way I'm at work. My own routine, and
Of course.
I feel like it's all connected. And then the kind of confidence that you feel, it has nothing to do with you being size 6 to size 0. No, I seriously feel like that's just, again, that's a social pressure that just and again, everybody they have their own preferences. They want to fit in size 2 or size 4. That's besides the point. That's your personal choice. But then how you basically deal with your day, your daily life interactions with people, I saw a huge change in that. So yeah, I mean, in the end, it's basically, if it's making you a better person, that's what I say. It actually does make you a better person. And if it's not, because there are other types of people too in the gym, let's say, for example, all pumped up. Like, you can tell that, they're taking some special supplements for that. Do they have that same kind of mindset? Do they have that same kind of positive energy, positive attitude? Absolutely not. But then they go by their own mantra. Like, you may feel like, excuse my language, but you may feel like shit, but you look great. But that my thing? No, that's not my thing. Because I'm actually, by doing this, by achieving my fitness goal, I'm trying to achieve that mental clarity, I feel amazing at work. I feel, and I'm not even looking at myself physically. I'm all talking about like the mental strength that I'm gaining from all of this. So,
Johnson, you want to add
Could I,
something?
could I, one, tell a story, and then secondly, ask a question? One is, since I've been, it's a really quick one. Since I've started losing weight, in the beginning, there was a tendency to look at other people who were overweight, and I am still technically overweight. So, but then I would say, oh, why are they not taking care of themselves? Now, it's easier, obviously, look at someone else, because you're trying yourself, and you're trying to justify to yourself. And then I think it was last week, I was coming out of
that's
the
actually a very
supermarket,
good question.
and then there was this very, very heavy man in front of me. And this is like, now I'm a year into it, and I said, I had a very different attitude. I said, I wonder what misinformed ideas he has, or what emotional bias. I actually had empathy for him. Whereas before, even at the beginning of the diet, I was very judgmental, and I was probably judging myself and just projecting it out. But now when I see someone who's not in shape, I kind of go, I wonder what ideas they have that are wrong, and what sort of stimulus and reaction they have. So that's a little story. But then my second one is a question, because you may guys have hit it already. Since we're talking about morality and right and wrong, I always love to baseline a discussion. Now, you may have done it already. I have a kind of a fairly clear idea in my mind of what morality is and also what ethics are. And I see them as two different things. And I would just love to know if you guys had already discussed that, or I'm happy to share mine. But I'll let you go first. And
so let me just give you a summary of the discussion so far. So we started the discussion saying that there are possibly two sources of, or you can say, worldviews to morality. One is that morality is subjective. You choose your own good and bad. One is that morality is objective. There's always a good and a bad, and the situation might change what is good or what is bad. But in that specific situation, one thing is good regardless of what the other person thinks, and one is bad. And then in terms of objective morality, then you need to discuss who the source is. Is it the law? Is it your upbringing? Is it religion? And when we're talking, if we say that subjective morality should be there, then how do you reconcile this subjectivity between different people and also different locations, different regions, different cultures? In doing this, we discussed a few examples. So, for example, we specifically discussed China, that if China says that you don't have the right to have a second child, is that a moral decision of taking someone's human right away? So Sal's point was that you have to assess whether this is a greater good or not. Then we went into the discussion of how being utilitarian in the subjective morality causes another, you can say, issue. But then Sal mentioned that, so actually what you have to do is you have to do a middle ground, that you can guide a decision rather than enforce it. So then it's not bad for either of them, and they can choose how good they want it to be for them based on their circumstances. So, and we never touched upon the objective morality so far. So we are kind of focused on and we also discussed what the end goal is. So we're not discussing the philosophy of morality as such. What we want to take away from the conversation is and yeah, we also touched upon the consequences of that. If someone does do something which is morally bad, especially in terms of a society, and not anything that he's doing in his own room at night alone. So in this situation of having more than one person who have a stake, and then you're deciding whether an action is good or bad, and if someone is doing a bad action, should there be a consequence? And if there should be a consequence, then who has the right to decide what the consequence is? Then we discussed that at this moment, the consequence is legal only, not a moral consequence. We don't really consider that as something because it's very easily avoidable. We did an example of that if you're in the US, but you want to do another marriage, you can just go to a Muslim country and get married there. So now you're technically legally compliant with the US law, but you are not morally compliant with the US law. So we separated legality with morality, directly, but then we were, kind of at the point of basically deciding that. So far we haven't touched upon objective morality, so we are kind of only discussing subjective morality now. But then we have some, you can say, not unanswered questions, but some discussion points in the sense of, if we are doing subjective morality, which good or bad is, or whose good or bad is the right good and bad. And then if the end goal is that if I want to do something which I think can be morally bad or morally good, and I'm undecided, how do I decide whether this is moral or not? That's the basic summary.
Oh, very good.
Other than asking ChatGPT.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, in our country, the smuggling is like one of the common process, right? So in some part of our country, the people think this is a trade, and they are doing this like from generation and generation, like KPK and Balochistan. But legally, all over the world, it is illegal. So like there is a debate. So if you think, okay, maybe the drug you can call morality, like you say it is immoral, then we all will agree. But if you want to bring the cars, or if you want to bring the different parts of the cars, or like the different type of tools and all these things from different countries, and which is not available in your country. Maybe the quality is better, like the Irani food and all these chocolates and all these things which you are bringing, and it is reaching to Karachi and all these different states. So now there's a question, like if the people have the right to reach and get the better quality of the food, then your government is not able to produce a good quality
Hello,
food.
did we lose him?
I thought I didn't speak, so.
Hello?
We lost for
We
one.
lost you for a minute. I think ISI
Can you
has
hear?
now tapped into your stream.
Yes, can you hear now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just saying, like, if we have the right to have the access of the better food or better quality or something like this, because it is coming from Turkey via Iran and Iran to Pakistan, but you cannot bring it in because of the heavy taxes and all these things, and it is already reached in Pakistan. So like there are different questions of moralities and all these things. So what I got from you people is like it based on your own decision, plus it vary from, like, let's say like what we started with, the the marriages from 13 years and all these things. So it goes from the culture plus religion and your philosophy, like what you are coming from, like the person like Pathans, which are born in Balochistan and KPK, they are doing the the business, or what we call smuggling, from generations. They will never call it this is like illegal or immoral or anything. They will never understand what you are talking about, right? And same thing, like if this person is getting married like at early age, and he's getting second and third marriage, whatever, maybe in our society in certain areas we'll call them, oh, this is not like a right thing and it should not happen, and they have women have right and all these things. Like in Shah Rukh has already seen Saudi, so like they have a very common practice of getting second and third marriages. So it is Islamic culture, but because we are adopting something from India and we does not want it to go, and we have adopted it, but we don't want it to tell that, oh, that this is Islamic or Islamic. We are trying to protect it, so we say no, it is okay to have one marriage. So there are different things, different thoughts which you are adopting from different cultures, and then you make this as a society, and then the definition of the morality changes from like from area to area. Even
But
like the people,
that's what we call subjective morality, when
yes,
it's not the same everywhere.
But like I will add more thing, like like if you move to USA and you live there for 30 years, 20 years, your all the thing, the thought process of your mind will change, right?
So let's do a quick poll. For what would you say is yeah, Jonathan, before we start, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to, I have a kind of thought about this quite a bit. What is morality and what is ethics and what is good and bad, and how can you judge what is good and bad? So let me leave good and bad there, but let me give you sort of my morality framework. And there's a couple of contexts. Somebody can be in a context of scarcity or poverty or whatever you want to call it. So call that level one, the base level. Somebody can be in an abundant state, and somebody can be in a prosperous state. Now, they are three different levels of existing. So if you have to survive, the definition of morality, or what's good and bad, would be, if a mother stole an apple to feed her child, I don't judge that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, so just let me explain the three levels and why we would consider good and bad slightly varying, but not subjective. So if somebody's in a state of scarcity, we'll call it, morality is about survival at that level. So there are three levels at which we often look at morality, where if we look at survival on an individual level, so that's self-morality, which is totally objective. But if I'm in a scarcity state, I'll do whatever it needs to survive, right? Right. Now there's kind of morality within each of those three states. There's three levels. There's kind of you, then there's the community or group that you live in. So we also have that sort of, is this good to my neighbor? Is this good to my family? Is this good to my, community, my country, or whatever else? So the judgment will be different than it is. I might not survive, but it could be good for the group. So do I sacrifice myself for the group? Or is the group willing to sacrifice me for maintaining a certain level of morality, even if I don't survive? So it's kind of, there's a personal level, there's a group level, and then I'll call it maybe a divine level or an objective level where we, either from religion or from our guidance from a spirit or whatever, we have an idea of what's objectively good or bad. And we'll take an example of a martyr. Someone's prepared to die because they will do the good thing no matter what. They will follow divine morality, even though they're in a state of scarcity. So for me, level one is about survival. And am I adhering to a personal subjective level, to a group level of some sort, or a divine level? And I'll hold myself to different standards depending, and I'll define good or bad differently according to them. So that's kind of like the base one. But then when someone is lucky enough to become abundant, they're able to care for themselves, they're able to sort of care for the family and even their community. You go to the three levels again, they almost discard themselves. So the bottom level, if we go back down here, is they've taken care of that. So they don't need to worry about themselves, because abundance, level one at level two, if you know what I mean, is not necessary. So they're more focused on the group and divinity, if you want to call it that. So they're about helping their family do better, helping their community do better, and probably have more opportunity to be aligned with their spiritual nature or their divinity or whatever else it is. Now, that's abundance. But then prosperity is a level again where literally they are so abundant that they're prosperous, that they've taken care of themselves. That's not a problem. Their community is fantastic. So then the only type of morality they, really consider if they're going in that direction is, we'll call it divine or universal or spiritual morality, because they can afford for that to be their only focus, because they've taken care of survival on a personal and group level, abundance on a personal and group level, and now they can dedicate. So for me, morality shifts according to the resources and capacity and capability and care you can generate for yourself and for your environment. And it gives you can become a warrior of the kingdom of heaven if you're totally prosperous, whereas that's a much more difficult task if you're looking to survive. So for me, morality is this sort of, and the judgment of good or bad depends on, am I on step level 1, 2, or 3? And I wouldn't judge someone who's on level 1 by level 3 standards, because if I do, they're prepared to die. They have to be prepared to die to keep a divine morality. Whereas this person has all the resources to have many other options. So I want to give you that. And there's one other thing which is so tightly aligned, which for me is ethics. Ethics is not morality. And like a lot of people even get them confused. Exactly. But ethic changes as you go up the framework of, or at least that's my framework. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's the way I think about it. As you go up the morality framework, what ethics is responsibility. So if I take responsibility for myself, it's only at that level. If I take responsibility for my family, and then as it grows, my community, as it grows, maybe even my country, as it even grows for the world. But as I get up to, as I go from scarcity to abundance to prosperity, my capability to be ethical around a much bigger group of people and thoughts and concepts grows. So ethics for me is about responsibility. Morality is about good and bad being judged by the level of capability versus consequences as you climb that ladder. So I just wanted to share my idea. Hopefully it helps a little bit.
So Jonathan, what if I told you that this moral framework is exactly what Islam says? 100%.
I must have met him 1,400 years ago. Then that's all I said. Peace be upon him.
Yeah, just to give you an example. So we'll start in the middle with the burdened person. So for example, the burdened person is not allowed to eat a certain types of food because he has so much options. By intentionally not eating something, he's able to demonstrate his submission to God. That's basically, now bringing in the Islamic context just to directly show you how it aligns up. So this is the middle ground. So you have the ability to do it, but you're choosing not to do it just to show your allegiance to a certain religion, that's rewarded. So, and if you do it, that's one small part of wrongdoing that you're doing. If you don't have that abundance, if you're at level 1 as per your framework, you are allowed to eat that food because you have no other option. If a person who is able to afford the next meal steals in Islam, he has a different punishment than the person who doesn't have the next meal. If a person who has money for the next meal, he's not allowed to beg money from others. If a person does not have that next meal, he is allowed to beg. So basically, your framework directly aligns with what Islam also says. And then now comparing level 2 and level 3. So if I have abundance of wealth but not abundance of knowledge, let's say, I wouldn't call this level 2 person prosperous, because then he doesn't have the capacity like Sania had to take on adversity upfront for a long-term goal. So this, I would call this person as a simple person, but he has the day-to-day amenities that we all have, even if we're not so rich, even if we're not so educated, but the basic education, basic wealth we all have. So I would say the default state is actually level 2 based on your framework. And most of the moralities from Islam apply directly to level 2. But one person who has this capacity of assessing what is good and bad for himself, for others, he or she is subjected to a higher level of judgment. He or she cannot be assessed only for themselves. So, for example, the rules of a leader of a nation, because they have opted to be the leader, they have said that I have the capacity to be the leader. Now, their questioning is not only on their actions, but also on the actions of the whole nation. So they have to set up the state laws, and they have to make sure that no one goes hungry. It's their responsibility, but it's not my responsibility if my neighbor is hungry. I can be a better neighbor by feeding them, but whoever has chosen to be in level 3, they have a higher level of responsibility. Now they have to uh, reply against not only himself but others, because he was fortunate enough. So I would say that one part is this belief that because everything has been given by God, so then if you don't agree to that part, then it does change the equation a bit. But I just wanted to mention that your framework is actually directly aligning with what Islam says, which I was quite surprised but happy to find out.
I agree.
Actually, can I maybe on Jonathan's point?
Sure.
Can I just this could be a little bit of a spicy topic, but let's just throw it in there. Why not?
Sure.
Let's make it yeah, I'm gonna add some color right about now. So
I think it's time to change the background there.
yeah, exactly. Oh, there you go.
Remember, this is the spicy conversation background.
Put some fire in the background.
Yeah, maybe I should do that.
So at work, when I was in banking, there was a guy in our group that we all knew was, let's just say, it was like an open secret that he was not, let's just say, exercising fidelity. Okay, so there was a lot of infidelity, So, and again, because I was a young guy, I was kind of like looking at it and I was being very judgmental, and I was like, "Man, look at this guy. He's such a bad person," and blah blah blah. And but I was surprised that my boss, who I still have tremendous respect for, fantastic, like brilliant mind, very fair individual. When he knew about it, and he just says, like, it is what it is. He's this guy is fantastic at work, and there's ethics, and then there's morals. So ethically, the guy is doing fantastically within our organization. He shows up on time. He does a work and a half, and he is bringing us business, and is spot on. Like, why would I care what he does when he goes home? Like, I don't care. And I was like, yeah, but you should care. He was like, no, there's a difference. So my boss told me that there's a difference between ethics and morality. And he goes like, morality, it's what this guy does, whether he feels there's a God who's watching, there's a God who's not watching, does he doesn't believe there's a God, or does he feel bad, does he feel good? I don't even know what his context is because of his infidelity issues, whatever. But when he is in the building, there's no better employee for the role that he has.
That's
And
the
he
responsibility
has
part. Yeah.
is exactly the responsibility part that Jonathan is talking about. So now he's like, I'm like, but should you go for a moral person or ethical person? He's like, for me, it's the ethics. Like this. So now I'm putting everything in these clean buckets, in my mind at least. You know, the difference between ethics and morality.
One
So he's
question though.
cheating with his wife, but he is a star like performer at work, right? So what do you do? Do you say, I'm going to penalize you for cheating on your wife, or I'm going to say, no, I'm going to give you a double bonus because you're
Even with that level of stress here,
right? So, and that's a dilemma for you as a boss, because you're aware of this. And but he said, like, my boss said, that's not even a question. He's like, I have zero interest in his personal life. I'm only looking at what he's doing. So as a young guy, I had to learn this, the difference between ethics in just this one context. So yeah.
So I would side with what your boss said, because you're right that if someone is doing something in his personal time, I am not the judge. So I can only judge him from an ethics perspective. But one question is that, isn't he being unethical to his wife then? Apart from being immoral, if we're talking about ethics as responsibility,
I agree.
He intentionally got into this responsible agreement, which we can call marriage, to be faithful to her. But then if she is breaking that contract, what gives us the surety that he will not break the employment contract at office at some point? Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to repeat something I said, and maybe it'll help. There's a general tendency as you rise up the morality that these are sort of aligned. There's a correlation. So, I know people, and you'll even see little movies on TV where bosses are going to interview somebody, but they'll pretend to be a cleaner, or they will bring someone out for dinner and watch how the person treats the waiting staff, or because, like, I don't know. I've met you guys in different contexts, not in everyone yet. But if you show me something immoral in one context, I can rightly have the expectation that at some point in time,
correct,
you'll either improve and that won't become a problem, or you will stay the same or get worse, and you'll bring that problem into the context that we have. So I kind of think that they, so I would say your boss was right in one way from a technical responsibility point of view, but it should have been a red flag to say that he is also potentially a future risk, because if he's doing that there,
he can do it at the office.
I will just add one thing. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm just cutting your conversation here. I would actually like to add something here that reminded me of a time when someone actually told me in the financial world, before the investors want to make an investment, they actually not in every scenario, but mostly they would like to meet with your partner or your family and see you in a family setup to be able to make a sophisticated decision in regards to if I invest in his product or in his company or whatever. We want to see what kind of decisions he make in his personal life. So it really goes back to what kind of ethics does this person have? What kind of choices he makes in his life. So goes back to the same thing as Jonathan said, how he treats the waiters, and he's in a social setup, what kind of decisions does he make in that area? So yeah.
Some people can split it, others cannot. Fawad, go ahead.
I just want to add, what we have observed nowadays, that there are a lot of things which are, in our society is considered maybe is a part of an ethics, or but it was the part of morality earlier. And because what we were discussing now as a what Jonathan and what you people were saying about the cheating and all these things. So because it was considered very, very, like immoral earlier, and when it was immoral, so like there was in Islamic society there was some sort of the punishment which are like ignored earlier. There was like what we say is like hudud, or the punishment of hudud. So anybody which disobeys the basic laws of the Islam, they should be punished on extreme end. So if there is some sort of cheating done by the person who is like married, or some male or female, whatever, they're supposed to be sentenced with the stone, and they should be killed, like to set an example that this is not acceptable by the society and the religion. And like it is good for the like the society, betterment of the society. Now what we are like I have seen and reading all these type of things where the people are saying, oh, like we are having issues with the marriages, and like the people are making hurdles in making new marriages and all these things. So how to improve, they are not going to the basic cause, that if you will end this process, like by giving them the proper punishment, so the people will go and start choosing the right way. So like the way people have changed the definition like 40 to 50 years back, and they are like bringing in, this is like this is my personal opinion, this is my personal lifestyle and all these things, and they are taking it away from the society, and they are ignoring like this is having impact on the society. So it is also one of the big cause of demoralize the like the immorality which is like increasing in our society.
I guess Fawad really touched upon the consequence part of living in a society, that when you do something, it is going to affect the society. So then the society has a right to decide the consequence.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as a society, what is moral and what is not moral, that is also a separate conversation.
So very quickly, Shahrukh, on the consequences side, one of the things I didn't share with you, that his family family as in like his sons and his daughters, essentially distanced themselves from their father, because they knew this was going on. And
okay.
And they said, like, we're gonna make sure that beyond a certain point, like some of them were living with him at that time, some had already gone to college and had jobs, but they made sure that they were not gonna see him again, like, because what they had done to their mother.
Yep.
And he was of the view that because this is so accepted in society, there's so many options in society, that what is immoral is state intervening in your personal life and making you marry somebody. He thought that itself was wrong. So he said that the state has devised this institution of marriage to put you behind bars, proverbial bars, and mankind is not supposed to be monogamous. Okay, so that was his kind of view.
Value change, yeah.
Was that?
His values changed basically based on
his values.
his
So yeah, and he kept, and I still remember the funny thing was he kept saying, "Have you ever seen a lion with only one lioness? Have you ever seen like you're gonna have these type of examples?" And you're like, "Oh my God!" But again, I think because we're having these discussions, when you look at the other side of it, he goes like, "It's unnatural. You guys are just too chicken to call it. It's unnatural. What is natural is not to be monogamous, right?" So polygamy is the way to go, not monogamy. And this was the argument he was using with his kids, and like, because he was ethical in the marriage, he was making all the payments, he was taking care of all the expenses, he was taking care of the wife's expenditures, so he was technically ethical there. But from a perspective of what he was being judged on, he said it's unnatural. You will see these marriages will collapse. The institution of marriage will collapse. This is at least his perspective, because he came from Italy. So he said that my great grandfather, who lived in one side of the hill, had wives in different parts of the village who never really got to connect with each other. So it's like so it's like, oh, cheating is fine then. It's like, no, it was accepted, but now I'm living in the US and it's not accepted. That was his sort of whole argument around it.
But like,
Yeah, John.
just on that, I've read about this. Obviously, I haven't lived it. I live in a normal country of nowadays. But what bonobos and chimpanzees are the closest to us. And whenever before in history, when that was allowed to happen, it creates a problem in society, i.e., normally the wealthy man might even, I think the King of Morocco had the most wives ever, 583 or something like that. But what happened in times where, you know, the wealthy men had more wives, there were like probably 60% of the male population had no partner. And what used to happen then was social revolution. So instituting the marriage concept stabilized society. So it's more a mechanism for society stabilization than it is because it's not natural, you're right. But the purpose behind it is actually to stabilize society. Otherwise, you 60-70% of the men with no partner, too many hormones, and obviously they're going to revolt. So it created too much fighting in society. So it's a kind of community control mechanism, pacifying mechanism. You know what I mean? That's one of its uses, actually, Saad. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Shahrukh is thinking.
So I guess I'm thinking let's wrap this up.
It got too hot. The conversation got a little too spicy.
No, I think we kind of touched upon all of the parts of subjective morality. I think I couldn't think of anything else to discuss because we did discuss the issues.
Absolutely. You're missing one thing, Shahrukh. You should be shouting, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right.
Yeah, I think that's the crux of subjective morality, right? At the end of the day, you have to say that this is my morality and I am the judge of the subjectivity, then I'm right. That's basically it. But then maybe in the next session, we can also explore objective morality a bit more on why people are not choosing that more commonly, what sources do we have? Because what I see most commonly being done is people actually take law as being what is moral in many situations, but law is, go ahead.
Could I add one little point, Shahrukh? It just popped into my head. Now, I don't know how much this might have affected you in Pakistan, but in the last few years, there's been sort of, I would say, use of pronouns and calling somebody something that they're not born. So imagine you decided with your big beard, you're a girl, that I would have to call you she, right? You know, so you have a subjective view of the world, and the law is now trying to coerce people to satisfy and affirm a subjective model, which I think is absolute lunacy in my point. You know what I mean? So I think that's an extreme point, but I just wanted to point it out. Maybe it was mentioned already, but you know,
it wasn't. But I would say that, Jonathan, I would say that that's because if we take law as what is allowed, what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, then you're not basically following any source of morality other than the person or the institute or the group of people that are currently in the ruling party.
Jurisdiction and all that.
So, for example, Fawad, you want to say something?
Yeah, just like last week or maybe like 3 to 4 days earlier, you and Saif were discussing that we are not stopping on the signals, and there is a fatwa that you can pay the tax to the government or no. So like these kind of things, I believe this come under morality. I don't know, like we can touch into this maybe in the next conversation.
See, morality is, the way I look at it is, if it feels wrong, it's wrong. I kind of look at it that way.
That is subjective morality, basically.
That's the subjective side of it, right? It's like if it feels wrong,
I'm right. It's a better definition of subjective morality. Or you can say a better way to convince someone towards subjective morality, rather than saying I'm right. It's the same thing, though.
It is. But see, like if I think, or feels right, even if it feels right, it's right. If it feels wrong, it's wrong. And I think maybe there's a follow-up conversation on how AI is gonna have sort of morality-based decisions and suggestions and inferences, because we have to somehow take our subjective morality and code it out, and that would be very interesting in how that plays.
And actually, AI has been accused of this. So, for example, there was this when Google's AI came out. So people tried to make someone who is black and also shown as a leader in an organization. So what the AI did was, there was a leader, but the black was not the color of his or her skin, it was the color of his or her clothes.
Oh,
So now it's a black, it's a black leader, but the black is not the skin. So, and they had to code it out,
AI
of
is
course. They had
racist,
to make
basically.
it,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah, they had
It's a
to make it
racist
more
AI.
neutral in the sense. But you're right, we kind of can comprehend these biases through AI because it's easy for us to see what sort of data, what is the interpretation out of the data that we give them. So
Yeah.
that's actually a good way to assess one society, or you can say one data set which we can generate from any other society.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess let's wrap it up.
I think we can
it
wrap
was
it up.
again, yeah, it was a very good discussion.
Thank you very much for the conversation, guys.
So thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you, Sonia, for
thank
joining
you.
us today. Yeah,
Thank
it
you,
was fun.
everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.